What's going on, Team Trek family? Welcome back to another episode. In the studio tonight, I got another veteran brother who is out there doing absolutely amazing things in the universe for not only the veteran community, but the civilians that support us. So I wanted to bring him on, let him tell his story and help him network and get out there to you. So without further ado, James Collins, welcome to Team Trek Podcast.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate the opportunity to come.
Dude, it's like I said, it's a pleasure, man. You guys are doing such amazing things out there in the community. I just wanted to help you get that story out there and see if I can't help you connect to the people that need to connect to you. So, but you know how we do it here on Team Trek. We like to start off and just kind of get a good understanding of where you're from, like who you are as a person. So I like to start at the beginning. So where are you from? And just kind of talk us from there, 50,000 foot view of who is James Collins.
I was born in a very small town in Mississippi, Vicksburg, Mississippi. Very rural town. Just you could drive through the whole town in 30 minutes. Very small town. But I grew up with my parents are still together today. A loving household. We didn't have a lot. You know, we were I'm not going to say we were probably right there at the teeter line of middle class, right? My parents had to work for everything they got. Nothing ever came easy. I never had a whole lot of stuff handed to me. And even because I was a single child, right? And people have this notion that because you're a single child,
you're spoiled to death.
You know, you got a silver spoon in your mouth. Yep. And that was never the case with me. My parents took care of me what I needed. They made sure I had what I needed. They got me, you know, they gave me the work ethic. My dad gave me the work ethic. So my dad taught me at a very young age that if you're going to get anything, you're going to work for it yourself. And so I've been working since I was 15 years old. And I just learned from my dad. My dad used to work at a nuclear power plant. He retired from there. And he still works now. He's in the service industry now. But he works the night shift at a hotel. So he's still in the service industry, still, he's in his 70s, still working hard to take care of his family.
Oh, wow.
And so my upbringing was always one of a positive nature. Like I said, we didn't have a whole lot, but I had what I needed. And anything I got, I earned it because that's how my dad taught me to do it. My mother and I, you know, of course, at a young age, we were very close, right? As the years went by, though, my mom and I are still close, but as I became an adult and we had some kind of some tension between us for certain things, we both had to really focus on that to regroup together. Because for years, my mother and I didn't have a great relationship, but we're working on that because I feel it's important that while your parents are here, you should want to be there. And because not everyone's here, you're only gifted a short amount of time on this earth.
Yeah.
And then you only get one mom and one dad.
That's right.
And I don't want, I've been trying to work on the relationship with my mother because, you know, we don't know how much time we're given.
That's right.
And I don't want to run out of time and not have a relationship with her or anyone important in my family. You know? Until, that was my childhood, you know, I did go to a private school. So at the time, you know, maybe we were like in the middle class because it was they worked very hard to send me to private school.
Okay.
They chose that. They just wanted the best for me. And so I do remember those small beginnings coming up as a teenager in little small town.
Okay. Now, did you get into sports, anything like that as you were growing up?
I did. I played football when I was like younger. And then as I came up through high school, I played baseball.
Okay.
You know, so I played baseball and football throughout my high school years. And I could have done something with the baseball side if I would have been a little more dedicated.
Okay.
Right. Football, I was okay. I was average. I enjoyed playing. I played cornerback, you know, special teams. and sometimes special teams on the punt return and stuff like that. But football was never my niche, right?
Okay.
Baseball was.
Gotcha.
You know, I had a focus for baseball.
Now, you said you started getting your work ethic at about the age of 15. What were you doing for work?
So at the age of 15, my mother has always worked in a barbecue restaurant. She's worked at a barbecue restaurant for most of her entire career. And so I would go to work at the restaurant and I would bust tables, wash dishes,
Service industry.
service, you know, learning how to treat people. That was really big for my parents. They wanted me to treat people with respect and learn how to interact with the public, right, in a positive way. And I like to say that stuck, because even now, when I go back home, if I go into a gas station, that I say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, and they look at me like I'm crazy, and they're like, I'm like young kids don't do that these days. I'm like, well, my parents raised me to do this years ago.
That's right.
It never left.
No.
And I still do that. Like, I still say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am to my elders. And it's one of those things that I'm glad that I got that value from my parents, because I think it makes me a better person. You know?
Yeah, I do. I agree. I like that. Okay. So in high school, playing baseball, playing football, working service industry, how were you grades wise? Were you top of your class? Where'd you sit?
So I didn't pick up my grades until I got to in high school. I struggled a lot in junior high, and it wasn't because I wasn't capable. I don't think I put the effort into it.
Bored.
Right. I think I lost focus, and I never put my focus where it needed to be. And then when I got into high school is when I really started excelling in my grades, and then, honor society, and then just numbers. Like, I have, ever since high school, I've been a numbers guy. Numbers have stuck with me.
Okay.
And I learned it in high school. And I guess in high school is where I started realizing what I was good at. Cause they say you always have that one thing that one day it just hits you that you're really good at it. And that was numbers and accounting for me.
Okay. So kind of your gift is in numbers.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that basically when you're considering your degree path in college, that if you're not really, really good with numbers, you're going to be an English major, right? Like you're just going to stay away from it. You're not going to be an engineer. Like
right.
It's very specific. And I think the majority of people are not good with numbers. I know I'm not. It's more of an English thing. But as a kid, I was good with numbers. And, I think once I got into middle school, it just didn't matter anymore. But okay. So did you go to college?
I did.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
I started off in a community college, and my parents helped me get started in college. But with the work ethic my dad gave me, I end up paying from a majority of my college through working. So my parents helped me get there and help if I needed everything here and there, right? But throughout the entire college career, I was working, and I was paying for my own way to go to school.
What were you doing during that time?
So I was still in the service industry.
Okay.
I was actually, it's a restaurant called give my hometown a spotlight. Goldie's Trail Barbecue.
Say it again.
Goldie's Trail Barbecue.
Okay.
It's right there, and it's off the frontage road in Vicksburg, Mississippi. The owner's still there. His name is Gary Thomas, one of the smartest men that I've ever known and worked for. He was another reason that I've got the work ethic I do today. He's also the reason I know how to cook most things, because he ran a catering business, and that's what I did. Was when I wasn't in school, I was working at his restaurant, and he was showing me how to cook steaks and fry catfish and service to the public, right? The stuff that I think we all need to know, that I was very blessed to get those lessons early, before getting pushed to the world.
Right.
And so I did that that's what I did as a job until I joined the military. And so it was just I had so many mentors coming up, especially my dad, and then Gary Thomas and all these people. Randy Wright, God bless his soul. He my first ever job was at Goldie's Trail Barbecue. It's a family run business. And so one get Randy Wright owns one, and then Gary Thomas, they're in the same family.
Okay.
And so God rest his soul, Mr. Randy's went on and passed away due to health complications some years ago. But between those two men and my father, they gave me the work ethic that I have today. And they showed me early what it was like for someone to believe in you. Like as a young kid, I was very impressionable, and most of us are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had three very prominent men that took the time to develop me and show me what I could be.
Wow.
And that was a early on. I knew I had some early blessings.
That's huge. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Getting that kind of mentorship from an early age.
Yeah. And then so I worked at the restaurants, and then I put my way through college. The degree I end up getting is completely, I don't know what happened here. I'm very good with numbers, right?
Right.
But my degree, I have a bachelor's in criminal justice and a minor in psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I took that. I don't know what changed me off of numbers. Like, because I originally went for accounting and stuff, and something happened where I shifted my focus, where I wanted to go into the criminal justice tract. And I did. Okay. And it's one of those, I went into the tract. I was very good at it. I made the honor roll and the dean's list every semester I attended college. Like grades were never an issue. The only class that I still laugh about today that really tested me and almost pushed me from the dean's list was biology. I couldn't stand biology, and I don't know why. I don't know why it never clicked with me.
Okay.
But that one class threatened my dean's list every single semester. Yeah.
One of those requirements too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had to take two of them. And I was miserable, but I knew I ended up getting a B in the class, a B or a C. But all the rest of my grades were high A's.
Right.
So the dean's list average still made it. But that was the one class that really made test my patience.
Okay. So it's community college, working, getting your degree. You're not there to party. So you're focused. So where are you going from college? What's the plan?
My college plan actually I started at a community college, and then I continued on into my military career. So it's kind of one of those where I started on some of my tract, and then I joined the military, and then I finished it while I was in the military.
Okay.
So I started at a community college and I did all my core classes through like lower level institutions. And then I ended up finally getting my degree from Armstrong State University, which is now Georgia Southern University.
Okay.
So I ended up getting it through a major school, but I just took the path to get there. It took me several years in between joining the military, and I used the GI Bill as well. So I did it right where I didn't have to pay. The only college I did pay for was the junior college.
Okay.
So
at what point did you transition from being just a college student into the military, and how did that look? What did you know about the military, and why did you do that transition?
I didn't know much about the military. I have a strong patriotic background. My grandfather, so my father's dad, served in World War II.
Okay.
And so he served in World War II, and then like the Nuremberg trials in Germany, right? And then my mother's dad served time in like in Korea in that time era. Like I don't know if it was the Korean War. I don't want to misspeak, but it was when he spent a lot of time in Korea. So he served. And then my dad's cousin as well, unfortunately lost his life in Desert Storm, trying to mess with a mine.
Oh. And
so I've had a history of family lineage of military history. And what really pushed me over the edge to join was 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, I just told my dad that I had to do it.
Okay.
Like I had to join. And he was like, you're going to deploy. I said, I know, that's the point.
Well, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, where were you, and like, where were you at in time and space?
So I had just graduated. It was right after I graduated, I was working full time, and it just, when it happened, I was shocked and floored that our country was attacked. And I'd already had patriotism would ran through my family anyway with all the prior service. And I just felt anger, and mentally I didn't really understand what was happening, because I didn't think something like that could happen to our country. Like I didn't think that something that of this magnitude would happen. And when it did, my whole mind shifted to, I wanted to do something about it.
Were you angry before that? Like as a person, like as a dude?
No.
Were you pretty? So you didn't get in a lot of fights or anything?
No. I mean, I've always known I can defend myself, but I can count on one hand how many fights I've been in. Okay. I'm traditionally usually a really calm guy.
Wow.
And so that flipped the switch for me when 9/11 happened. And I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know how. And the only thing I knew what I could immediately do was join the military and go fight.
Okay.
And go defend this country. And that was my mindset, because I was still a young kid.
How old were you?
21.
Okay.
21 years old, because I came in 2004. And so really young kid, it took me, it was 3 years after 9/11, but still 9/11 was the tipping point for me.
Okay.
Where I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So talk me through going and seeing the recruiter, and then like, what did you choose ultimately, and how was that path?
Well, I mean, I went and talked to several recruiters. Talked to the Marines recruiters. I talked to the only recruiter I didn't talk to, which is a funny story, was the Air Force recruiters.
They're out to lunch or something.
Right. So I went to the Army recruiter, and were they completely honest with me? No. Were they completely honest with my family? No. They weren't. They wanted numbers. I get it. It's retention, right? But they gave me enough information to know it's what I wanted to do. And I got to choose with the scores I had, I got to choose from several jobs that I really wanted to do, right? And I knew I didn't want to be like infantry. I knew I wanted to do something support, like ammunition, something on that side.
Okay.
So I end up coming in the military as a 55 Bravo back in 2004. And that MOS now, any of my older guys out there, has now changed to an 89 Bravo.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why I originally enlisted. And they one of the biggest things that got me was they told my parents that, the whole sole survivor thing, he can't deploy and stuff.
Not a real thing.
No.
Okay, so what?
No.
Let's just deep dive that for just a 30-second. Sole survivor. Like what? Okay, what does that even mean?
So what the recruiter told me, and my parent, not even me, was my parents, was, he's a sole survivor. He's an only child, this and that he won't be able to deploy. And my parents bought it because I was enlisting to deploy.
Right.
Like it wasn't going to deter me.
Right. You're going to be an ammo supply like specialist, right?
Yeah.
You're going to work on the range out at Fort Bragg, or
right.
wherever.
Yeah, exactly. And so my parents, they believed it, and then I guess it helped because they said, "Oh, okay, we'll let them." Like I had to convince them to let me join, right? But it was just one of those things. When I heard it, I knew it didn't make any sense. I was still a young kid. And to me, it didn't matter because what I was joining for was to deploy,
right? Was
to go to Iraq and defend this country because of what had happened on 9/11. And so, yeah, quickly my parents realized that it wasn't because I deployed. I came in 2004 and I was deployed in 2006.
Okay, so within 2 years.
Yeah. So from the time I got to my duty station at Fort Lewis, we were we were deploying.
Your recruiter is gone by then. So
Yeah.
Your parents couldn't go back.
No, they couldn't go back and do anything. And that deployment was for 15 months as well. So you talk my parents getting surprised. Not only can I deploy, but I deployed for 15 months for that one.
For over a year.
Yeah.
Where'd you deploy to in that
So that first one was to Baghdad International Airport.
And I'm sorry, we kind of skipped it. So your first duty station, your first unit, where did you end up?
Fort Lewis.
Fort Lewis, Washington.
So my first duty station was Fort Lewis, Washington. We drove cross country from Vicksburg, Mississippi to Washington State. That was not fun.
That's a 4-day drive?
Yeah, it was a 4-day drive for us. My parents helped me, of course, right? And
doesn't sound like you're super independent at this age. Like your parents are still there for you for everything. That's awesome.
Yeah, they were there for my parents. I was very blessed.
Yeah.
They were there for the move. I didn't have to, I had a level of independency with what I was doing and what I wanted to do. But if I needed support, they were there. They were, yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. Not to say that my parents weren't there. It's just, no. But I mean, by the time I'm 21, I was, forget about it.
I had moved out of the house when I was 17.
Right.
I was living on my own when I was 17. But when I picked up the phone and especially when I said, hey,
I'm joining the military.
Yep. I'm getting stationed cross country, Washington State.
They were going to squeeze every second they could out of being
They
with
loved
you.
it. Yeah. They my dad rented a U-Haul. We had 2 vehicles. They were awesome.
I mean those are proud dad moments, right?
Yeah.
Where you get to be the hero. I'll help you move, son. I got this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, well, good. Okay, so good deal. So now you're moving across the country.
Correct.
And Fort Lewis, Washington, and there's no way you're deploying because you're just an ammo specialist.
Right.
So,
right.
Cool. Let's pick it up from there.
And I ended up getting assigned to the 3rd Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division, Stryker Brigade Combat Team. A mobilized deployment unit.
Right.
Right. And so my parents didn't know any different, right? And so when I get there, clearly we get the expectations. Hey, the unit you're joining, you're a Stryker Brigade Combat Team. You're going to see, you're going to see a lot of stuff. They need you.
Yeah.
Right. And so
it's important.
It is. And I knew it.
Yeah.
But it fit what I wanted to do. Like, that's why I joined the military, because I wanted to go make a difference.
Right.
Like, I wanted to go fight for this country from what I saw on 9/11. And I wanted to be on the front lines. Like, I knew I wanted to do it. And so, we get to Fort Lewis. I'm giving my parents a call. About a year later, hey, y'all got to make a trip back up here. I'm deploying. Right? And you can imagine what they're thinking. Dog, that recruiter, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but but they made the trip. They drove all the way back up to Fort Lewis to see me deploy and see me off. And so the first deployment ended up being right to Baghdad International Airport. That's where I started. And then I end up spending time because my unit, let's say I wasn't the best. I was a great soldier, right? But you know how you have I like to say there's cliques and units where certain people get along and certain people don't.
You have the good old boy club.
Yeah. And so there was a good old boy club in my unit. And so basically, because I wasn't the popular one, I was sent off to the logistics supply team with 137 Field Artillery very early in that deployment. And basically it ended up being a blessing because I got to see and I got to do the route clearances. I got to do the convoy operations in the cities.
What does that mean exactly?
So the route,
a lot of people at home don't know what this means.
So the route clearances were we had a team, an EOD team that would go before us, explosive ordnance disposal, right? For those out there who don't know what that is. And they would go out and they would survey the route before we took it, right? And then we would come behind them and run our operations. So it could be routine supply operations where we were traveling to, refuel supplies at another FOB. It could be, most of the time with 137 Field Artillery, it was convoy operations in the cities, right? Because they were tasked with that identity and that mission, right? And so I was blessed. As an ammunition specialist, right, who's supposed to be sitting on a FOB, I'm on the road behind,
A lot of people wouldn't consider that blessed, because being on a FOB where you're protected by walls and there's, a certain amount of standoff distance between you and the enemy, as opposed to being right there on the roads going through towns and cities where the enemy is.
Right.
You're calling it a blessing.
I didn't want to be caged up.
Okay.
I didn't want to be on the FOB.
I get that.
Complacency was really big for me, and I wanted to be on. I didn't join to sit on the FOB. Okay. And when I got the assignment to 137 Field Artillery, I was actually happy because I got to do the high speed training with them, the close quarter marksmanship, the CQB, house clearing, route clearances. I got to do all that fun stuff that most ammunition specialists wouldn't get to do. Okay. So I was living my best life, and we end up, once we were done with our training, we end up getting stationed in Key West, not Key West, not the whole Key West, Florida. We got Key West in northern Iraq. And that's where a good bit of my time in that first deployment was spent, was attached to the logistical supply team with 137 Field Artillery.
Okay. So what's your day-to-day like out there at Key West?
So we ran a lot of missions and convoy operations in support of 137. So anytime the Field Artillery would go out, we would go out with them, just in case they needed any kind of support, right? And so that's what we did for a good bit of the time, was convoy with them everywhere they went.
And this is circa 2007.
So 2000, we left is probably late 2006.
Okay.
Late 2006.
15 months, so all the way through.
So yeah, because it kind of shifted for us. Our job shifted in that 15-month deployment, because I completed the rotation with 137 Field Artillery. We did our time in northern Iraq, and then right at our 12-month mark, we were about to get ready to come home. We were literally packing connexes to come home, and we get extension orders to Bakuba, to 5 Warhorse Bakuba, where it has been like, Tampa and Irish are just lit up, right?
Yeah.
These main supply routes.
I was going to ask you, can you explain what Tampa and Irish are real quick?
Yeah, so main supply route Tampa is the main route running through the entire country of Iraq, right? Basically, it's the interstate running through Iraq is Tampa. But then Route Irish was right outside of Baghdad. And so that's the two main ones we use was Route Irish, and clearly you have to use Tampa, right? And so a lot of things went into those convoys, and it really taught me a lot. And even though I suffer from what happened on those convoys, I don't think I would go back and redo anything over. I still think the life experiences that I got to being on those roads, because a portion of that second deployment was not only with 137, I was actually I did several special assignments. So I was right there in Baghdad. I was actually part of the Army's first expeditionary detainee holding operations area. Okay. So we would go out and capture the bad guys, the ones they wanted to interrogate, right? Bring them back to the detainee holding operations area. They would get the information they wanted out of them, and then we would have to, as a convoy, take them back out in the streets of Baghdad at 3 a.m. Yeah, and so I did that, and I was on the M250 cal for that. I wasn't inside the Humvee, right, and so there was a lot of things I saw from that top of that 50 cal that I talk about a lot. And I think one of the ones I always talk about you got a veteran if they understand what name tape defilade is, right? Oh, yeah. And you're laughing about it now, but for those not listening, that's that defilade when you're in the 50 cal turret, how high you're sitting up to eliminate yourself from a sniper target.
Yeah.
Right? What is showing from the 50 cal? But when you're talking to a veteran, when they hear that name tape defilade, what that means.
Yep.
They'll hear it and like, oh, I know what that means. You know how important that is. But it was on Tampa and Irish that you learned just how important that was.
Yeah.
You know?
So you guys are sitting, you said you're at 12 months and you get extended.
Yeah.
So for the people at home that, and this is, you kind of touched on it a little bit. You guys were packing up, like it's time to go home, and it's been a long year.
Yeah.
Of every day, you're living in that fight or flight where every day could be the day, and you're supposed to be going home next week, next month, whatever it is, and you get extended. Like, what is the morale at that point?
Oh, it's shitty.
Just wrecks you.
There's no way. You're just defeated. I mean, because even, another thing we did on that deployment, that first 12 months was, it was too, I was on a recovery asset team. So you want to talk about mentally tough? Like, we had to go out at dark 30 times of the night to see burnt up Humvees and recover radio equipment from a burnt up Humvee. And I mean, I've had instances where I've been covered in somebody else's blood for a recovery to the point where I can't even get inside a physical Humvee now. Because if I get near one, I start smelling sulfur and I start freaking out because I was covered in someone else's blood that didn't make it, trying to recover them. And you're trying to, move your way through and recover weapons and sensitive items and radio systems that you can't leave in there. And so someone's got to crawl through there and do that.
Yeah.
And so the sight of human blood triggers me now, and especially Humvees. I can't get in a Humvee. I can't sit in a Humvee. I can't get near a Humvee. They freak me out to this day. And so we did all these special assignments, and we had a hell of a year, and we were ready to go home to our families. And they come, oh, by the way, you're packing your Connexes, but you're not going home. And they send us to Bakuba for a FOB Warhorse for the last 3 months of the deployment when we'd already been there 12.
Wow.
Right. And Bakuba's at this time is a hot spot. Like, at this time, you got to understand that the activities had moved. Like, we were still getting some kind of IEDs and a lot of that aggressive attention in and around BIOP, but it had moved up to like FOB Warhorse.
Right.
And that's why we got moved up there to go deal with that issue. And it was miserable. I mean, everyone was, you got a bunch of, I'm not going to say not everyone had the same mindset, right? But everyone was defeated. You got a bunch of guys who had been, not everyone went through, I went through, right?
Right.
But the guys that went through all the special assignments I did and saw all the death and the recoveries and the near-death experiences that I don't know, I can't even count how many I had in 12 months. I'm not even going to try because it was way too many to count.
Right.
We were going to go home to see our families. And they need you in Bakuba, FOB Warhorse. So we pack our stuff and go to Warhorse for the last 3 months of our deployment in a hot spot. Like, the roads, we're not only dealing with improvised explosive devices, right? For those out there that, those roadside bombs, i.e. whatever to cause destruction to our equipment and kill as many personnel as possible, right?
Right.
We had to deal with, in Bakuba, Warhorse, we had to do with house-borne IEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs. And to this day, I can't go, like, bags of trash bags to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. That sends me over every time. But we had to deal with that because that's the area we were going into. It was a trigger hotspot, and everything was amplified. And we're already been there 12 months, and then we got to go deal with this.
Wow. Yeah, that's a brutal first deployment. I mean, it's a brutal any number of deployments,
Right.
but I mean
Yeah.
that's your first one.
First one.
So you're private
So no, I came in as a PFC,
PFC,
and by this time I was I think an E4, because by the time I left that first deployment, I was close to getting my 5.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly because it's been some years. I think I may have even pinned 5, and then I pinned E6 on the second deployment.
Okay. So basically, in your first, when you did that initial enlistment, how many years did you enlist for?
It was the 4.
The 4.
Right.
So out of that first enlistment, you had 15 months in combat, however many months in basic training and your AIT,
Right.
and probably, would you say, about a year or so on station at your unit, huh?
Well, and then too, I came in with a degree, and at that time, I picked up specialist pretty quick.
Okay.
And so, I think by the end of that extension, I was either E4 promotable or already pinned 5. And so, because I remember the second deployment, I had already pinned E6.
And how long of a break did you? So after that first deployment, how was
we
life?
came. Oh wow! So you probably know this, and anyone that's served in any kind of active unit, right? We came home and we got a little time with our families. You had that 2-week block leave, right? But then we went right back to training. Yakima Training Center, NTC, like all these rotations were still in there.
Yeah.
Because we knew we were going back to Warhorse.
Yeah.
They told us that. They said, "Hey, don't enjoy it because you're going to be here a little bit. You're going right back to Warhorse,
Wow.
right back to Bakuba, just so you know." And so we were. That's what I don't think a lot of people understand about active duty military units is when you're actively training, you're not at home much.
Right. I mean, you're not going to work from 8 to 5 and then
No.
coming home every night. If you're getting ready to deploy, a lot of times you're doing a month-long train up,
Yep.
which takes you away from your duty station, right?
Mhm.
Like you'd mentioned that you guys
Yep.
go to Yakima
Yep.
or go to NTC, even those are hundreds of miles away from home. So you're not getting to spend the night at home with the family.
No, you're away from your family a good bit of the time on an active duty unit. And I don't think people grasp that. And I think that's why people, when you tell people like the divorce rates within families of active duty units, then people wonder why they're so high.
Yeah.
You're never at home.
You're not.
You're rapidly training to go for your next deployment.
Yeah, I mean, when we came in, when we were enlisted, I came in a little bit before 9/11, but we served during a time of war, during 2 wars, right? And then we had stuff going on, in the Middle East as well. So we were just deployed to so many continents. We really actively worked our butts off. We were never home. We were always gone.
Yep.
I think today it's not near as bad, right? I think soldiers spend the majority of their time at home and they don't have to train as much as we did because they're not doing that constant deployment rotation. So we were in a very unique time.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't think people realize the training cycles that we were on. You deploy, you specifically 15 months, come home 2 weeks to spend with your family, and then it's we got to train up to go back, and that may be a 6-month workup before you go back. Which brings me to my next question: how long were you home before it was the next rotation?
We were home for a little over a year.
Okay.
We got back in 2007 from that 15-month deployment. We didn't redeploy to Warhorse until 2009.
Okay.
So about a year and a half, maybe if we were lucky, right? So it wasn't like back to like we was home for a little bit, but still take into account of the year and a half we were home, 6 to 8 of those months we were gone training.
Right.
And then you got to take into effect your leadership schools.
That's right.
That people don't like your career progression. I had to go to, Warriors Leaders course. But at the time when I went through, it was WLC.
That's right.
And then when it was ALC, I went through WLC and ALC. Yeah. Right?
It was different when I went through.
Right.
So they changed fairly
right?
often.
But the point is, you're not only rapidly training for a deployment, you're going to leadership schools in between.
Right.
More things taking you away from your family. And so you spend a little bit, you were home for a year and a half. Yeah, but what portion of that did I even get to see my family?
That's right.
Because I was always gone or doing stuff. And so, and then we redeployed back in 2009.
Okay. And going into the 2009 deployment, what is the tidbit for? Like, how many months are you planning on going in for?
We knew that one was for 12.
Okay.
We knew going in that was going to be a 12-month deployment because they gotten us once with the extension. So of course we were all wondering, but the extension is not something you can plan for.
No.
That's not something that they even knew ahead of time. And if they did, they didn't tell us, right? So we knew it was going to be a 12-month deployment, and we knew we were going back to the hot zone, like right back to Fob Warhorse and Bakuba. And so the mindset from a lot of the senior guys was we felt like there was a heavier burden on our shoulders because we had some newer guys coming into the unit. That was going to be their first deployment was Warhorse. Like, we had been there once.
Yeah.
We know what it's like there. The senior guys, we know what it's like. We've been there, we've experienced it, but it puts a heavier burden on your shoulders. For me as an NCO, it kind of gave me more purpose though.
Sure.
Because I took that as a charge to train those soldiers and to put them in a mental mindset of where they were going, what to expect. Understand that, you can see this stuff on TV, but understand what you're walking in, what you're going to be actively serving in and dealing with on a daily basis.
Right. It's not a joke.
And it was a really hot area. I mean, Warhorse at that time, I think they did a documentary on the Stryker Brigade combat team in Warhorse. So it was documented how hot and heavy this area was, And so, it was one of those where the senior guys were like, we knew we had to take care of because you got brand new privates coming in.
Oh yeah. And everybody knew about Warhorse, and everybody that had deployed over there, like they had heard about Warhorse, and
it got around. That was one of the hottest areas for a long time.
Yeah.
And so that the second deployment really our focus shifted because we knew what we were going back into, but we had to make sure these younger enlisted guys were going to be okay, or at least be trained up and know what to expect mentally. Because the mental breakdowns over there is what people don't talk about.
Right.
The isolation. We ran missions all day long, but you still felt isolated. Like complacency was really big for me. And so I used my adrenaline rush and elevated adrenaline rush to escape complacency. And that's the only way I kept my mind out of what was going on was, okay, we got to do this. It was just constant adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And this is the point in my career where I start telling people where I started getting really mentally depressed. Like, I don't know what happened. I was happy I enjoyed being there because we were doing what I love to do. And I'd already been there, so I knew what to expect. But I got really depressed, and I started getting the thoughts that I didn't want to live, right? But I didn't have the fear to do it. I still feared it, right? I couldn't do it myself. So I did everything I could. It's not like I talked to the chaplains. I talked to anyone that was available to me. I went to the gym twice a day. If I wasn't on the road, I did everything I could to put myself in a positive mindset. And nothing worked. Like, I just didn't, like, the level of isolation and despair I felt that second deployment, I just wanted to die. Like, I wanted to come home in a box. There was no other way around it. But I couldn't do it myself. So what did I do? I volunteered for any mission leaving the wire. I put myself in, and I call it like a secondhand attempt because you're not doing it to yourself physically, right?
Right.
It's not self-inflicted, but you're putting yourself in harm's way for it to happen. And people don't talk about how many people deployed go through that isolation and despair phase where you put yourself on a 50 cal constantly because you want to come home in a box, because you feel you'd be revered for your service if something happens to you, but you don't have the I couldn't do it myself. I didn't have the courage to do it myself, but I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to die. I wanted to die. Like it wouldn't hurt. I wanted to not be here. And that was the turning point for me was, and I was very blessed. I watched Humvees in front of me blow up. I watched Humvees behind me blow up. I've got 3 confirmed concussions in the TBI registry from the backlash, from getting thrown forward, from getting thrown backwards. I had to have back surgery in 2019 because of what the turret did to my back from those explosions. Jesus. Like, I've seen it all and nothing worked. I still came home. And it was that second deployment was when low hit low. And I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's just I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't feel like, I felt I was only valuable in that combat setting, or people would have revered what I did if I came home in a box with draped over a flag. But I didn't want people to, I didn't want it to come from my own hand, because I hadn't got to that level of despair yet. But that was real. Jesus. And I think really people need to think about the people that deployed. There were people I knew that put themselves on a treadmill and they knew they had a heart condition. They knew it was going to kill them. They did it intentionally. Same thing I did. I just try to put myself in harm's way and let the enemy take me out. But this stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, we don't really talk about.
No one talks about the secondhand attempts that not the self-inflicted ones, that it's not the ones you achieve, right? Not the successful attempts. No one talks about those secondhand attempts. And I always tell people that in our ceremonies. I said, please use the word fear as a tool. And that, crazy as that sounds, when you fear, if you still fear death, you won't. It's hard to do it by your own hand, right? You're holding on to something. I'm grasping on to something in this world. I'm still depressed. I'm still miserable, but I don't have the courage to do it myself. So the fear is keeping me in this world. When you make that decision that you no longer fear death and you were going to take yourself out, that is where the switch flips. Because now nothing is holding you to this world. You don't fear death anymore. You're happy leaving the world. Now, that's what fear. I really want people listening to, if you have a loved one, if you have a veteran, if you have a first responder, and they're still suffering and they're here, look for those signs of fear, right? Because that's what's holding them here. They may be completely miserable like I was, but they don't have the courage to do it. So they're still here. There's still time to fight.
Yeah.
But I didn't learn how to use the word fears as a positive tool until I got back and I looked at all the mental health struggles I had. You're right. And that's yeah.
Wow. No, I like that. I've never tried to think about it like that. Like, fear is a good thing because
yes,
it's preventing you from doing that, right? So
right.
A lot of times when we go through our evaluations, right, our post deployment evaluations, right, and they ask a lot of the questions, right? Did you fear for your life while during this deployment? Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it.
I just, there's so many other aspects to this. I think that we need to open people's eyes to. And people you hear fear and you put a negative tone to it, right? But fear is not always a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, on those questionnaires, right? They want to ask you a lot of questions about like your risk taking,
right?
Are you taking unnecessary risks a lot? And I guess so. While you were telling that story, I'm going back to that survey, and I'm thinking about the fear, right? And then, are you taking risks? Because if you don't fear death anymore, then you're probably going to be taking a lot of
Your risks
unnecessary
are elevated,
risks, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
That makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Never really thought about it.
And think about those surveys that you're talking about. How many times did you fill those out? And how many times did you feel like you could honestly answer them?
Not until the end of my career could I honestly answer. And that's me being truthful. You read through those questions, and there's I can't remember. It's 5 or 10 questions. Very simple.
Yep.
But if you answer yes, and they're yes and no questions. And if you answer yes to any of these, you're going to go see the doctor after this. So you have to go directly to the shrink. And most of us just don't want to find ourselves in that room. I mean, that's the bottom line. We want to get out of that process so we can redeploy.
Right.
And so we can go back to our teams and be good.
Think about the attention you're going to draw to your command as well.
Of course.
That's one thing.
I don't know if I was so fearful of what it would bring to the command as much as what it would take away from the guys. You know what I mean? Because now take me off the team.
Yep.
Most of us think that we're pretty good at what we do and nobody can do it as good as us. So now you're going to take me away from those guys. So I think it was a little bit more selfish than what it's going to do to the command. But anyway, I'll let you go on that.
Yeah, for us, that's what it was. We didn't want to be isolated by the command.
Oh, of course.
We didn't want to be called into the commander's office. Hey, you answered yes to this question. Why? Like they were going to isolate us.
That's right.
You can't honestly answer those questions on those surveys. They're not there for you to honestly answer. They're there for the chain of command to say, "Oh, we did our due diligence. We asked them the questions."
That's the safety brief.
Yeah, they're not ready to deal with the yes answers. That's the problem.
They just have to be able to say that they asked the question.
Correct. If it's a yes answer, that means they have to devote more time and attention and energy to it. And we all know at that time they were not. That was not the intention for those questions. We know that. Anyone that's deployed knows that. That's came home and that answered those hard questions. I always felt like my risks were elevated. I always felt like 2 or 3 of those questions were yeses every time I took those surveys. But I couldn't put yes down. I couldn't answer it honestly.
For fear of
isolation from my command.
Yep.
Are they exactly what you're talking about? My command, my unit, they did a lot of like engagement surveys, right? And one of the things that they do after every deployment they would pull all of the NCOs out of the room, all the leaders, and they would talk to the lower enlisted, and they would ask them what went good on the deployment, or maybe as overview. Out of all your leaders, who did you feel safe with? Who trained you most proficient? Who do you feel most comfortable going into battle? Most of the people chose me. If you went under me, it's because I genuinely cared for those soldiers that were under me.
Nice.
And I took that, right? But it goes back to what you were saying. If I answered another part of this was, if I answered yes to this question, are they going to pull me off?
Yep.
Are they going to pull me out of this? Are they going to make me where I can't lead these soldiers?
Yep.
Am I a liability at that point to them?
And for a good chunk of years, the answer to that question was yes.
Yeah.
If you rose your hand and you said, I have a problem, I'm having an issue, I need to take some time, then you got removed, and it just never went the way that you hoped it would.
Well, you became a liability to the command. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be that way. You should always be a resource to that command. You should always be something that they're trying to look after, but it always wasn't like that.
Yeah.
And we talk about that, but that's the reason there's a stigma surrounding suicide now. Not only in the military branches, in the first responder branches, especially as he's very prominent in law enforcement.
Yeah, I hear right now fire is leading the way, and all the first responders and military. It's fire is actually leading.
And that's one of the things that we can dive deep into that, because that's one of the things Heroes in the Sky focuses on is suicidality rates in trauma populations and why it's important.
So I want to transition to Heroes in the Sky Foundation, but before we do, because you didn't get into that until the latter part of your career, right?
Right.
As that transition.
Correct.
So can we kind of round out where your career was going? So after that, after this last 12-month deployment,
Yep.
And you said you were just really struggling on this one. Can we kind of finish that one?
Yeah. So we did that 12-month deployment, came back, and I re-enlisted in Iraq on that second deployment. My full intention was I got tired of going to Iraq and I wanted to go to Afghanistan.
Okay.
I got tired of, I didn't, it's not that I didn't want to deploy. I just wanted to go somewhere different.
Right.
Because I went to Iraq for 27 months.
Yeah, it's a long time.
It's a long time to be in that country. I wanted something new, right? Mm-hmm. So I asked the re-enlistment team where I could re-enlist and, where if they were deploying. And not only did I get able to get Hunter Army Airfield, which is at the time was very hard to do because it's aviation. It's not an open enlistment where not everyone gets Hunter Army Airfield. Right. And that's what I wanted. And I got it. And I was like, and just so you're in luck, just so you know, they're getting ready to go to Afghanistan.
Perfect time.
And I was like, okay, sign me up. So I re-enlisted to go to Hunter Army Airfield. Get to Hunter Army Airfield. I can't remember. It's sometime after 2010 because we got back from the deployment in 2010. So it was sometime that year or early 2011. I get to Hunter Army Airfield and I actually go to the unit there doesn't even exist anymore. It was 1-3 Aviation. Okay. But now they've, it's Echo Company 1-3 Aviation is where I was stationed. Okay. And now that unit's not even stood up there anymore. But right before they were about to deploy, I get the bad news that I'm getting medically discharged. Okay. That, because I did my physicals, like all the stuff you're supposed to do, go to medical. I had a whole bunch of back problems. I was all messed up here from everything I'd saw in 27 months. And I think with the combination of both, I think the biggest thing was my back because my back was deteriorating very quickly. The doc told me that, hey, we're sorry, but you're non-deployable. We're going to put you on rear D and we're going to medically discharge you. And at the time I was defeated because I wanted to go to Afghanistan.
Right.
I wanted that. I wanted that experience. And I wanted the chance to go lead soldiers in a new environment because by that time I was an E6. Right. And I'd already seen combat operations in Iraq and lived through explosions and seen stuff. I had the experience a leader needed to go lead in that environment. But then they medically retired me 2013. So March 26, 2013, I signed out of the military. Okay. And they did. I was very lucky. I did get 100% because I kept my records up. But yeah, I'm medically retired in 2013.
How was that transition process for you?
Oh God, the transition process sucked. The Army does not give you enough resources, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face. You can't send someone to a class to teach them how to do a resume a couple hours a week and not give them like a roadmap. Like, why aren't we identifying mental health resources before these soldiers get out? If someone that would have helped me a lot. Okay. Right? Because I had a nice psychiatrist and psychologist when I was still dealing with everything that was going on during my med board. But most of the time where we fail is we're not identifying the resources. Like, okay, hey, you're about to get out in 6 months, whatever time is, right? Mm-hmm. Retention knows when you're getting out. Retention knows if you're not re-upping. They know who's getting out, who's staying in.
Right.
Why aren't we giving them a checklist of here's a list of mental health providers in your area that take TRICARE? Go ahead and start making connection with them now.
Yeah.
Figure out the best one that fits you, because when they retire you out and they hand you that DD-214, it really is like they just, okay, you're no longer wearing the uniform, you're a civilian now. They don't give you any insight of what the civilian life carries. And that's what drove me insane was you have all these resources. The chain of command supposedly cares about you so much, but they know when you're not getting retained. Why aren't we doing more?
Right.
Why don't we give them, hey, here's psychologists in your area, they take TRICARE. This is where you go if you need peer support. This is where you go if you need family support. If you're married and you need family therapy, you go here. Give them something to look forward to. Teaching me how to write a resume 2 hours a week is not helping me do crap.
Yeah.
It doesn't help me transition to civilian life. My transition to civilian life was like most others, was miserable, extremely depressing, extremely isolated. My relationship with my kids was absolutely fractured from never being at home through deployments, and then at the same time, simultaneously going through 2 bad divorces.
Yeah.
Like I went through that first bad divorce right about that time I was getting out, 2013. And in that divorce, I lost the relationship with my kids. I lost the relationship with everything that I thought I had. Because I'm out of the military. I'm divorced. My kids don't want to have anything to do with me. And that carries on for what? 4 years. 4 years. Because from 2013, when I got out, I immediately got put into like exposure therapy and anger management, because I'd got in trouble with the law.
Okay.
With my anger. And I was lucky, like it all got dropped, right? But I had to go to anger management. I had to do all these things that were mandated to me I had to do because I needed the help. And then at that time is when I chose to put myself full time into like exposure therapy to get my life back. Because I'd already lost my kids, I lost my wife, like I lost everything that I thought was pushing me forward, and I had to do something to get myself back. And that's when I chose to go to exposure therapy.
Now, what is exposure therapy and how does it help you? I've never heard of it.
Okay, so exposure therapy is where you actively go into the room and you relive all the moments that you're traumatized by. I had to describe in detail the IEDs I went through, the explosions, being covered in somebody else's blood, what that felt like, relive the event for the therapist. And as crazy as it sounds, it actually works. It was the only thing at the time that got me where I felt like I was a part of society again.
Is this similar to EMDR?
No, absolutely not. EMDR is more of a tap slash how you process things, right?
Okay.
This was more of you going in there, exposing everything that was trauma related in your brain and talking about it over and over and over again until you and try to teach you how to process it. Basically taking every traumatic event that another traumatic event, I had to actively talk about was walking back from the dining facility, and how they always say, if you hear the whistle coming from the mortar or the rocket, that means you're pretty much, that's it.
Yeah.
That you're not coming, it's too close to you, right? I can honestly say I have lived through the whistle. I have heard it. I fell on the ground and we knew we were going to die. We just knew it. We fell on the ground, held our heads, and we just laid there. We knew we couldn't do anything. Walking back from the DFAC at camp and BIOP. So I've heard the whistle. I lived. We both lived. It was 2 of us walking and we both lived.
Wow.
But the exposure therapy came in where I had to talk about that openly. I had to talk about being covered in somebody else's blood on their asset recovery team. I had to talk about seeing decapitated bodies, missing heads missing from bodies. I had to openly talk about over and over again kids running in front of Humvees in front of us because they were so starving, and we're doing humanitarian missions, giving them water and food, and they're running in front of our Humvees. They're willing to get ran over to get water and food. I had to openly talk about that over and over for 2 years. It took me 2 years of that just to focus again, just so the triggers wouldn't amplify so bad. You know, they weren't as, they wouldn't change, or I still have the triggers, but they don't control me as much now because I had to go in there and openly talk about this stuff. And you can watch grown men go in there and mentally come out defeated because I came out in tears every session, reliving all this trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds brutal, man.
It's not for the faint of heart, but I knew I had to do it because I couldn't. I watched so many of my battle buddies go down that rabbit hole with alcohol, substances, trying to get themselves away from the mental anguish they were feeling.
Just trying to numb that.
Numb it. Yeah, they're numbing all their problems, right? And I watched them go down those holes. I watched some of them never come back from those holes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be that person. I wanted to, even though I didn't have a relationship with my kids, I wanted one with my kids. So I knew I had to do something to get myself back. And so I chose, it was my choice to do exposure therapy. I chose to torture myself. Right? And at some point, I did choose to go back into anger management. At some point, it was voluntary. I needed it. Right?
I've never been, but I'm curious. How does anger management go? Is it similar to exposure therapy?
It is. It is. It's just, it's only focused on your anger. They only focus on the parts that you would like.
So one's emotion and the other one's.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's supposed to, they have two type of anger management. They have a group setting and they have like a intimate one-on-one. I never could do the group. The group was never for me. It had to be one-on-one with my psychologist. Okay. And my psychologist was absolutely amazing. I can't, that's probably one of the best. If it wouldn't been for that psychologist, I would not be here in the capacity I am today, because she was phenomenal.
That's awesome.
But I had to put myself in that environment. And so with watching everything that was happening, watching my life about to spiral, because I've lost my kids, I'm divorced, I'm out of the military, I don't have that purpose anymore. I had to do something. And me going to therapy was refilling my cup so I could rebuild myself and try to get my kids back. And it wasn't easy. None of this is easy.
Yeah, man.
It's not. It mentally it takes a toll on you. But I made a promise to myself while I was vulnerable in this therapy, I would not drink. I would not do drugs. I would not use vices. I would not use anything to take my attention away from me getting through this therapy and being trying to get my kids back and being in a capacity where I could even take care of those kids.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand. When I got home, I wasn't in a capacity to take care of myself.
Right.
A grown adult. I couldn't even take care of myself. How am I going to take care of those kids? Yeah. And that's when it clicked. I have to get myself back. So I didn't allow myself to drink. I didn't allow myself to do drugs. I didn't allow myself to do anything that would deter me from that therapy I needed. And I still don't drink much today. It maybe one or two here and there, but I don't like it. Like, I don't like losing sense of myself. And I'm glad that I put those boundaries down for myself.
Yeah.
Because most people wouldn't.
No, it's, alcohol for us, most service members, right? It's what we can do
Right.
when we're in. And I don't want to say that it's encouraged, but it's not discouraged.
Correct.
Right? It's almost, it's work hard, play hard, and you guys worked. You guys deserve this, right? It's almost like you earned it.
Right.
And so for a lot of us, I know, for myself, alcohol was my go-to, right? And that's how we numbed everything. And that's how we kept ourselves going. So I'm really happy to hear that wasn't yours.
No, I knew I had to do better. And I'm not saying if you turn to alcohol that you're a bad person, because I know different people have different methods.
Absolutely.
And I know different people set different boundaries. Just for me, it wasn't right.
Yeah. With me, it was, I take things to the extreme, right? So alcohol, I took it to the extreme and it pretty much ruined me.
Well, I grew up not an alcoholic, but I grew up as a teenager drinking all the time.
Yep.
That's what we did. I lived in a small town. We had nothing to do. Our parents bought us alcohol and told us to stay in the yard and drink.
Right.
That's what we did growing up. So by the time I was an adult, before I joined the military, my alcohol tolerance was through the roof.
Right.
Like, I could drink anything, right?
Everclear, right? There you go.
Yeah. There was limitations, right? But tolerance was up. And so I knew, with my prior background with alcohol, I knew that was something I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Because I knew how it was going to affect me. And it was going to keep me from achieving the focus of that therapy. Because I was putting myself through mental torture every 2 times a week for 2 years. And that couldn't be for nothing. That couldn't be in vain. I couldn't let that slip. I had to stay focused on that recovery track. And it was a rough 2.5 years, but I made it through. And I'm blessed that I chose to put those boundaries in for myself. Yeah. Because like I said, I've seen other people who not that they didn't want to. I don't think they had the willpower.
Well, I mean, after a session like that, I can imagine most people just want to go home and drink and just numb that pain. And so for you to not have that vice to fall back on, like, that's, you absolutely tortured yourself, but that's the work that you have to do to actually heal.
Yeah.
If you want to heal, you got to do the work.
Yeah. You got to put in the work. Like, you can be put in the right predicament. You can have the right therapist, but your effort has to be there to match.
It's on you.
It's on you to take what they give you. And I had to take the changes that what they were trying to instill in me. I had to apply those to my life. And that's what I did. And it wasn't easy, but I'm grateful I did. Because, like I said, I've lost too many friends, and to alcohol.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends still suffer with that.
Yeah. It's
right.
It's a hard thing to get away from.
Because once it's like one of those things, once you start relying on it to get through, you're numb. You rely on it to get you through the day. You rely on it for this. You rely on it for that. By the time you realize you have a problem, it's too late.
Yeah. And most of us, it was sleep, right?
Yeah.
Like we, for whatever reason, whether it was we're in pain or our minds are just running a million miles an hour, we just find ourselves not being able to sleep when we lay there. And so alcohol will help with that.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes that dependency to be able to fall asleep. And before you know it, you can't fall asleep without it.
Right.
And yeah, it just ruins everything moving out. Really happy to hear that you were smart enough to keep that at a distance. So good deal. So what would you recommend that treatment? Because it sounds brutal. 2.5 years of it.
I would recommend that treatment if it's you absolutely, like, at that point in my life, I'd lost everything. And so, yeah, if you're at the point where you've lost everything and that level of despair and isolation is just, it started mentally becoming eating away at me. And so, yeah, I would. It saved me. I cried a lot, but it taught me how to process what happened. I talked about it enough where even though it hurt, I cried. I relived those moments. It was just retraining myself how to deal with them.
So let me ask you this real quick. I remember I caught a clip of a Joe Rogan episode. He was talking to a doctor who was speaking against talk therapy in the sense that when you talk about it, you're just reliving it. Like you need to just, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I don't want to. I want to do it justice, but ultimately, I kind of got the take from it that if we continue to talk about it, continue to have conversations, how are you healing from it? Where you're always bringing it up, and that's exactly what this therapy is.
I healed from it. It's more of, it's teaching you how to deal with it. It's not so much of, the fact that it's repetitive, yes. But I think the repetitive process is what internally is what makes it, if that makes any sense. Like you talk about it enough, you're training yourself when those thoughts come, how do I deal with them?
Okay, so we'll put it in a perspective of airborne operations.
Okay.
Your first time you jump, you're terrified. It's hard to deal with. You don't see a whole lot of it, but the more jumps you get, the more your aperture, if you will, opens up and you see a lot more. It's easier to understand, easier to deal with. So from, that muscle memory, creating that muscle memory of it, you get better at it. Now, is this kind of being looked at in the same light? Like, okay, you went through this trauma. We're going to relive this trauma. And each time you relive it, you're going to heal a little bit more. You're going to get a little bit better with it to where you can just deal with it. So in essence, you're not really healing from it. You're just learning how to deal with the trauma.
Yes, confidence.
Okay.
You're instilling confidence, personal confidence that that you can deal with that trauma emotionally. That's what it was for me. I learned to deal with it emotionally by repetitively talking about it and becoming just, I knew that if I talked about it enough, it hurt. But when the triggers happened too.
Yeah.
Because for me, a lot of these things I was talking about in exposure therapy were directly tied to the triggers that I had. Whistles going over my head, loud noises behind my head, knocking on, don't come up knocking on my glass of my car, right? Because I was in Iraq when I've seen people get shot by their own weapon.
Yeah.
Because someone reached through, grabbed it, shot them.
Right.
So it's the triggers. The biggest thing that exposure therapy did for me was learning how to deal with the triggers.
I don't want to say acceptance, but it almost sounds like you're accepting who you are today, right? So we talk about this. I remember, I want to say it was the very first episode I did. I was talking to Matthew Dacchio, and he was in a therapy session, and he told me about it. He told me a story about basically everyone in therapy is there to try to get back to who they used to be, right? That 18-year-old version of James, right? And he said somebody spoke up and said, you'll never get back to who you were. What you need to do is you need to be focused on dealing with who you are now. Right. And so it's almost like that acceptance.
Yeah. You're acknowledging the fact that those triggers are there, that trauma is there. You're acknowledging the fact that trauma will always be there. But with the acceptance of that, you're training yourself emotionally how to deal with it, or how to deal with it more efficiently.
Right.
Is what it is. The trauma never goes away. And then I think that's important to remember, even if you go to talk therapy, right? Psychotherapy. the trauma doesn't go away in psychotherapy. They're just trying to instill in you with the confidence that you are strong enough to deal with it.
Right.
And that's what exposure therapy did for me.
Okay.
It just showed me that I was confident enough and strong enough mentally that I could process these painful, traumatic emotions. Basically.
Through talking about
So just repetitively talking about
over
it.
And
over and over again. Yep. Over. Didn't matter.
Did each time hurt a little bit less or feel a little bit lighter? No.
It all hurt the same.
Okay.
Because they would focus on, each session would focus on like what was bothering you the most. Like what triggers were the heaviest. And for me, that was always whistles, because we almost died from that rocket. Mm-hmm. And then the smell and sight of blood. So for me, those never got easier. It just made it, I learned how to deal with the emotions. Like I didn't run from them anymore. Like I wasn't trying to escape them. I knew they were there. I knew they existed. I knew the trauma was there. I knew I had to emotionally face those events and do something about it. That's what I think it did for me.
Okay.
Like facing it head on.
So if you had to give just a 30-second kind of spiel over the gold, if you will, like what you achieved out of that, you kind of just described it, right? Being able to accept these fears head on, not run from them.
Right.
So what does that look like now for you when you are faced with one of those triggers?
They still, like the triggers still affect me. I still sometimes, if depending on the environment, when I hear them, I will react. It's what I've seen is it doesn't affect me for so long now. Where before, when those triggers happened, I would be completely incapacitated for 30 to 45 minutes, completely lost, like blank stare, not responding, in my own world. And now, because I went through that therapy and I faced some of these issues head on, I feel like the duration of the flashbacks aren't as intense. Okay. Right? Because I know they're there. I know they're going to happen, and it's a realistic approach. I know that this therapy is not going to take them away.
Right.
That's not what's happening here. They're not going to go away. I have to face them. And it's helped me significantly. Just the duration, when the attacks happen, they don't affect me as bad. Maybe they're a little milder because I've processed the emotions repetitively surrounding that traumatic event. Right. Relived it several times over. And so it just makes them milder.
Yeah, this is definitely the most extreme treatment journey that I've heard somebody gone through.
Yeah, you can't. Nothing you do about this process makes. Even the therapist today will tell you the trauma doesn't go away.
Right.
Right. You have to teach. Therapy teaches you how to deal with it, how to face it head on, how to acknowledge that it's there, but also how to acknowledge that it does not have to control every aspect of your life. And so for me, exposure therapy helped me because now I am I'm not going to say I'm normal because we all know that's not, my head's all kind of jacked up, but my day-to-day operations are a little smoother.
Okay.
If I get triggered, yes, I will react, but I'm not on edge all the time like I used to be. Okay. Like, I'm that as a veteran and someone, any capacity, we always have that hypervigilance, checking locks, looking behind you, having to see your exits. Yeah, that never goes away. But just how they affected me personally is what got, I think I've gotten better at. And I have done I've even done EMDR. So I think that's what helps as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I've come to realize, generally speaking, it's not one thing that fixes us, that people point to and say that was it right there, that fixed it. It's generally, that's a tool that I used. That's a tool that I used. This was my favorite tool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like exposure therapy, although the most brutal thing I could really imagine.
Oh, it's yeah.
So, and I don't want to stay here for too much longer. But you said it was a daily.
I went twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay. For 2+ years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to include that in my daily life, right? If I'm working 8 to 5 and I've got to sneak in a, bi-weekly or twice a week session of, probably, and then you said you're wrecked when you leave that session.
Oh yeah, you're completely.
You're not going to go back to work like you just did this on your lunch break.
You're emotionally numb. Yeah, you're absolutely emotionally numb leaving that session.
Yeah, we talk a lot about integration on the show because we seem to talk about medicines a lot and different therapies that have worked, but then it's that integration process after the treatment that we think is lacking focus a lot. If I had to try to put somebody through, basically detach them pick them up from wherever they're at, from their day to day, put them through a treatment like this, nobody has 2.5 years to be able to go dedicate that, solely to it. But is there any kind of crash course where it's just as intense as this is, where they're doing this kind of therapy on top of, call it like a 30-day, I don't know.
The closest thing they have now is EMDR.
Okay.
And it's a different focus though.
So so they don't have exposure therapy anymore? Okay.
I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't know who offers it.
Sure.
I know the VA does offer it because that's where I got mine. And it does depend on how good your psychologist is. Like not every therapist is, they're good at what they do, right?
Sure.
But the VA I think still offers it. But as far as the crash course, now these days we're turning more towards like EMDR style therapy. Right. That where you kind of retrain your brain how to, when something happens, how do you deal with it? Right.
Right.
And reinforcing like positive values about the trauma. Like what is your safe place when, like that's the biggest thing of EMDR is one of the first things you do in the therapy is they have you describe a safe place. So when you start feeling overwhelmed, your emotions start to get to you. Where do you go as a safe place? Right?
Yeah.
And so that very early on in EMDR, you define what is your safe place. And that's huge in EMDR. And anyone's struggling today, I would have them try EMDR first. And then if you have to do exposure therapy, then do it. But EMDR may actually retrain your brain without all the heavy trauma.
Okay. So start with EMDR.
Start with EMDR. And if you need more, if you were in the level of despair I was,
yeah. Then I can go try the exposure therapy.
And to be fair, when I got into exposure therapy, no one told me how effective EMDR was.
See, and I've had a couple guests on that have spoken very highly on EMDR.
EMDR is what has turned my life around, if we're being honest.
Yeah. And that's what we are. We're honest on this show.
It has taught me how to deal with my triggers and my emotions and where my safe place is. When these triggers happen, where do I need to go? What do I need to think about?
Okay.
What was going to pull me out of this traumatic event?
Dude, Happy Gilmore did such a good job with this
right?
happy place, right?
Yep. But when you talk about happy place, that's kind of what EMDR is. a positive reinforcement of where your safe place is. You know, when you are triggered or when you're heavy emotions, right? Because here's the thing about, we talk about mental health, right? EMDR is the only thing that has gotten me where I do not see shadows on my wall.
Wow.
I have been followed by shadows my entire, even when I was in the military, and then especially when I got out of the military, I've always seen dark shadows on my wall. They have followed me. They have bothered me. And they typically come when I'm most vulnerable and I'm most stressed. But through EMDR, I've learned to control that. And those shadows, I'm not going to say the shadows completely go away, but they don't come quite as often. And when they do come, they don't affect me as bad. So EMDR is 100% worth, if you are struggling, find an EMDR therapist, because it is absolutely worth your time.
Okay. Yeah.
110%.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested in looking at, you know, like I said, I've had a couple of people on, they've talked highly about it. I want to say my sister's done it too. People speak highly of it. So
I run
check it out.
My job is an everyday job as chief financial officer for a counseling business. I see people when they come in, I see the state of mind they're in, and I see people when they've been coming in and receiving therapy, especially that therapy for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You see that when they walk in, they're a different person.
Wow.
You see their face. You see how they carry yourself. You see their mannerisms. The confidence they have to deal with those traumatic events is completely changed because of what EMDR does for you.
Wow. Okay. No, thank you for that, because, you know, again, the exposure therapy I hadn't heard of before.
That is a last resort. If I did it only because that was the only thing I had left. Yeah. I lost everything. But I definitely wouldn't resort to that firsthand.
Yeah, it sounds like you punish yourself.
That's not for the weak of heart.
Yeah. No, I used to have a buddy. He was on a combat dive team. Those guys were always in great shape. Yeah. And I remember we went out and had a rough night of drinking. Next morning, I'm stumbling out of bed, and he's coming back from like a 10-mile run. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I had to go punish myself. And it's like, it sounds like that's what you did. You just, you punished yourself. Okay, so let's transition then. So your transition story, right, included a lot of self-help, right? And so we know we need more assets out there for the guys and gals as they're getting out. And I know they're trying to do better, but I think it's, you know, our stories. And here's another thing. I don't want to just bash, you know, the military is like they owe us all these things and it's their responsibility, because it's definitely not their responsibility. Right. You know, we're out there. We're not theirs anymore. Right. So I put that on us, right? I put the onus on us, the veteran community, to talk about our journeys, to talk about the things that are working and what's not working. Because guess what? The military, like those guys that are there, they haven't retired yet. They haven't gone through this shit. So they don't have a clue what they're going to have to deal with. Right. So I can't really beat them up too much, but I will beat us up about it. Absolutely. And so that's what this is about. Right. So through that, right. And we haven't really brought it up too much. You mentioned Heroes in the Sky, but you're wearing a vest. Obviously it's the elephant in the room, and we're probably an hour and a half in and we haven't talked about it yet. Right. So what's going on with the vest? And as soon as my dog stops barking, Truman, knock it off. So again, what's going on with the vest? You want to just kind of take it from there?
So I think it's important to start why Heroes in the Sky was started to begin with. The last thing I didn't cover was in 2018, I went through my last divorce. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I'd gotten myself out of, I'd been through all this therapy. I've gotten myself back into society. I was in a I was in a better place. Had another nasty divorce. What it really broke the back was I had reestablished some kind of relationship with my kids. 2018 happened, second divorce, completely ruptured the relationship with my kids. They don't speak to me now. They have nothing to do with me. And I get it. I openly admit to everyone listening and to those kids, I was not there for them. I was not. I wasn't in any capacity to take care of myself, much less them. And I've apologized to them, tried to be there for them. But that divorce in 2018 is what broke it back. And that's why the foundation of where Heroes in the Sky came, because I went on a PTSD retreat and I was already making suicidal plans. Second divorce happened. I'd lost my kids again and I was done. Like I did not, and I was going to take my life this time. I no longer feared death. Fear was gone. And so I was trying to figure out how to do it where my kids wouldn't see me. And I got this invitation to go to a PTSD retreat in Allen's, Tennessee. And I took it. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm in Tennessee. I'm across state lines. My kids won't find me. They'll find me on a beach. I'll be done. 3:00 in the morning on a beach in Tennessee. I've got a black backpack. Springfield XDM 40, still have the pistol. Reaching it in out of the backpack to blow myself up, shoot myself in the head. Right, done. And somebody stops me. Somebody that they don't know me. I've never talked to them. She's leading the retreat, but I don't know who she is. And she comes down to the beach and says, "I don't know who you are, but you need to talk." And I tried to, I said, "No, I'm good. No, I'm good." She said, "No, you're not." And she wouldn't leave me alone. She saved my life. Because literally my finger was on the pistol as she stopped me. I was pulling it out of the backpack and she stopped me. And from that moment, after reliving all the secondhand failed attempts where putting myself in harm's way and the insurgents and enemy didn't kill me, and then I survived that attempt for my own self-infliction, I knew I had to do something. So the idea for Heroes in the Sky took root because of the mental health struggles I experienced and I almost fell victim to. I knew I wasn't the only one struggling.
Right.
And so my brother, D'Angelo Shaw, he was the manager at a Planet Fitness in Rankin, Georgia. And I was a part of another organization, for a mental health organization. And I just started this new initiative. I just wanted to honor warriors that we've lost to suicide because it was weighed heavy on my heart because I was almost a victim and I wanted to do something. And so I took it to D'Angelo and says, "Hey, you don't know me, but this is what I want to do. And I want to put a board on your wall. And I want to put names on it that we've lost to suicide so we can raise awareness." And he was like, "Dude, I love this idea." And so we went with it. This is December of 2020, right? Heroes in the Skies has not even been thought of yet. And so we do it. And between him and I, between 2020 and 2024, we conduct 3 ceremonies at Planet Fitnesses. And we thought everything's going good. We build this brotherhood. We do everything together. Like he's my brother. He's part of my family now. And he calls me one day and says, "Hey, so got bad news. We got to pull the board down because it's a corporate buyout and they don't want anything on the walls that's not approved by corporate." And so we had done 2 and 3 ceremonies in that location with families.
Jeez.
Locals loved it, and we had to pull it down. And at that time, him and I were both defeated. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what do we do from here? Like, we had no idea. Like, I didn't know what was about to happen. And then we get through that, and in 2024, we officially launched Heroes in the Sky Foundation. And we were scared. We were nervous because look what happened the first time, right?
Right.
We get through it. And yeah, January 17th, 2024, we officially get our incorporation that we're a charity through the federal government. And that's where it started back in 2020.
Now, what is Heroes in the Sky?
So Heroes in the Sky is a nonprofit organization that represents our veterans, first responders, and emergency personnel that have lost their internal war. We focus on the mental health aspects because there are a lot of organizations that focus on the ones lost in the line of duty, the ones killed in action, the highlight of how the work the families have to do when you lose somebody to suicide is completely different if you lose them KIA or in the line of duty. You have to fight for a service connection if you lose them to suicide. And that's huge on families. And so that's why we started Heroes in the Sky. We initially started this as an awareness project, right? We wanted to do memorial boards that would hold 60 warriors. Families could take part in it, put their warrior's name tape on it. We would facilitate a memorial environment where families would sit next to each other and realize they're not alone. You're sitting right next to someone who's lost somebody to suicide, whether that be a mother, a child. You've lost somebody in that traumatic event, and you're sitting right next to each other. So now you can talk and you don't feel like you're alone in this world.
That's right.
Right. And so that was the original intent for Heroes in the Sky, was memorial boards and placing families next to each other to make a difference.
I love it.
We quickly realized that there was way more to this. It probably a year ago, or I don't even know how long ago it started. I always wear this battle vest everywhere I go. But it clicked in my head. I'm like, we're dedicating memorial boards, but why aren't we dedicating battle vest? Battle vests hold more of an intimate meaning to military members. If you may not be the same vest you wore.
Sure.
It holds the same values. You at one time wore something like this.
Yeah.
It was part of your service. And so we was already wearing this to create conversation. Hey, why are you wearing that vest? Why are those names on that vest? So it would open the door for us to tell somebody these warrior stories. Well, that's when it clicked in my head. I'm going to start dedicating battle vest. I put a battle vest on TikTok. One battle vest. And it blew up. I mean, I had people from TikTok writing me, how do we get a battle vest? How do we do this? This is so awesome. Like you don't see this.
Wow.
You don't see, you see people wearing vests, but you don't see people dedicating battle vests to facilities. And so the battle vest became the most probably popular memorial piece that we have. We still do the memorial boards, right? But the battle vests are what come to light. And so D'Angelo was huge in this process. He believed in me back in 2020 when I didn't have the title of president to my name, right? Before everyone in his communities know who I was, knew who Heroes in the Sky was. D'Angelo Shaw believed in me. And that's why he is the co-founder of Heroes in the Sky. Because he believed way back before this became a reality, he knew what was possible. And so that's important today because we carry his vest around because unfortunately, Veterans Day of this year, he was tragically murdered and taken from us. Senseless murder, execution style, taken from his family, taken from me. And so now he's not here to see the rapid growth and expansion that he helped me start. See, people don't realize if it wasn't for D'Angelo, Heroes in the Sky would have never been born because I would have put a bullet in my head and been dead years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
That's just the truth. And people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
I would have taken myself out. Heroes in the Sky is what saved me. His belief in me saved me 5 years ago. His belief in what this program could be saved and it laid the foundation for what we are. Have we implemented more and have we grown since? And have we added, different facets to our operations? Absolutely. We've grown.
Yeah.
But it started with him and I back in 2020. And I don't know if he would, clearly he's not here because he was clearly taken from us. And we both had a hard time transitioning, and we helped each other through each other's dark times. And that's where we kind of bonded. And I visited him in the hospital when nobody else would. I took Gatorade and water to him when he was dehydrated in the hospital just to look out for him.
Right.
And so when we lost him this year, it's really set me on fire and anger because someone took him from me, but also now I've got this legacy to carry forward. Now I need to let everyone know who D'Angelo Shaw is and what he did for Heroes in the Sky.
That's right.
All right. And what he did for me, for James Collins, not president of the Heroes in the Sky, because this wasn't even thought of yet. This is what he believed in before, 4 years prior. So yeah, we launched because of what he started, because of the belief he had in us. We launched Heroes in the Sky in 2024. And now we operate on 3 key principles: awareness, prevention, and education.
Okay.
Because without all 3, you're not going to achieve anything. Awareness is great, but if we don't have prevention measures or we don't have education measures to prevent this from happening, then what are we doing? So awareness is our battle vest, our memorial boards. Prevention is our families. This is where we get into why we do what we do. Widows, children, siblings, parents are often so many times forgotten.
Right.
In this process. They lose a warrior to suicide, and not only is the suicide swept under the rug, who talks about the families? Who talks about the complex grief that they go through? Who talks about the fact that a widow that's lost a loved one, a spouse, is 3 times more likely to die by suicide?
Yeah, that's a true statistic.
3 times.
Yeah.
A mother that's lost a child is 2 times more likely to die by suicide. Suicide ripples through our families and no one talks about. So our prevention piece is our families.
Okay.
We give these families a lifeline, an identity, and a purpose.
I love that.
You know, we give them a YouTube channel to come tell their story. Hey, come tell about who was your warrior? How did you meet him? What was your life like? What do you want people to remember him by? Because if we're giving them the platform to talk about their stories, not only are they keeping that warrior alive in their mind,
right,
we're renewing their purpose to stay here.
That's right.
Because their suicide rates are just as high as everyone else, but no one's talking about it. It's overlooked. Heroes in the Sky doesn't overlook it. We give them a reason to stay. We include them. We uplift them. We give these families a reason to stay and talk. We encourage these families. We amplify their voices. And that's our prevention. And then we educate. Because what is awareness and prevention if you're not educating people on how to make a difference? Education's huge. We travel nationwide. This year alone, I have been to Missouri. I have been to Florida. I have been to Texas. I'm back in Florida now. I'm going back to Texas in January, back to Florida in February. We have, in 2 years, we went from an organization I didn't even have the confidence we were even going to be able to, rebuild from a board being pulled down to traveling nationwide, educating people.
That's right.
And so it's huge for us, and it sits on my mind because we educate people on trauma populations. People talk about veterans all the time, and you made a comment earlier. But they talk. There's a moniker for veteran suicide. It's underreported. We know that.
Right.
Has anyone asked where's the moniker for first responder suicide? There's not one. It doesn't exist. Heroes in the Sky is working, and I don't know how we're going to do it. It's a monumental process.
Yeah.
I want Heroes in the Sky to be the first organization to coin a first responder moniker for suicide. Because it's absolutely needed.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about first responders, you talk about, you touched on it earlier.
Well, we're talking firefighters.
Firefighters.
Right? Yeah.
Firefighters carry 72% greater risk for suicide than the general public. They carry the highest suicidality rate of any population. Veterans are 57.3. Firefighters are significantly higher. We lose 100 to 200 firefighters a year to suicide. No one quantifies that. No one talks about that.
Yeah.
They're more prone to sleep disorders. post-traumatic stress,
Yeah.
all these health issues that directly contribute to suicidality rates, firefighters are more exposed to that, right? Police officers, who talks about we lose a law enforcement officer every 17 hours. When's the last time you heard that?
I'd never heard
No
that.
one talks about that. And it's in sources. I've got it cited.
Yeah.
So I can show you where it came from. Like, studies have shown we lose a law enforcement officer every 17 hours to suicide.
Yeah, that sounds sad, man.
So every 17 hours.
Yeah.
Police officers they're more apt to deal with trauma from veterans, having to respond to a call with the veteran. You know the emotional toll that takes on a police officer to deal with a veteran in crisis, especially if they have to take the life of that veteran. Do you know the emotional toll that takes on those officers?
Yeah, man, it's brutal to think about. I know I came across something on firefighters, right? And my son's a firefighter, so that stuck out to me. But I was very surprised to see those numbers that high.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, and you mentioned the sleep, right? Our sleep patterns are consistently disrupted when we're in the military. We're deployed. We're constantly, changing. You can't get into a real good cycle, right? It's always getting disrupted. Firefighters, that same thing, right? When they go to work, the alarm goes off, every 2 hours or not at all for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what sleep, has to do with a lot of our mental health issues. I know it's big.
A lot. Yeah.
Right? You can't sleep. Your brain can't heal.
No, you can't heal. But firefighters, it's their exposure. The constant exposure is what elevates their rates. Because whatever shift they're on, like as a veteran, I know I was deployed for 15 months and 12 months, but I got to come back home.
Right.
Now, they're on for 48 hours, and then they're off for
4 days, maybe.
For 72, 3 days, whatever, 4.
Yeah.
That's not enough time to desensitize, to see what they've seen on shift. And then the fact that they're about to go back on shift and probably see the same traumatic events or even something worse. Think about the firefighters, even law enforcement and EMS that have to deal with issues like traumatic events with kids.
Right.
Think about how that plays in their head.
Well, and we talk about these events, and it's like, man, I really wish that they just didn't have to get exposed to that, so they didn't have these mental health issues. But the bottom line is, like, wars are going to happen. Like, we need people to go fight wars.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to have it. If we don't have dudes like us to be able to go out and fight those wars, if we don't have dudes that are built like my son to be able to go and fight fires, then we're going to lose a lot more people, right? And so we kind of get into this every so often, but it's like, where's the rub, right? Like, and then how do you combat the other, right? Because we got to have warriors. We got to have dudes that are ready to fight right now and ready to give their lives right now. We got to have, firefighters that are ready to do the same, and then law enforcement as well. So where's the rub and how do we fix it, right? And so we talk a lot on this show specifically about what are those things that are working for us, right? And so for law enforcement, for firefighters, for military, right? You go through a traumatic event, and then what are those immediate after actions, right? Like, are firefighters able, say a whole team deals with a traumatic event? Well, do they have enough in their inventory to be able to say, hey, you guys are going to take a week off and go through, some therapies and different things. Meanwhile, we're going to bring in another team. It just seems like we don't have enough in our inventory to be able to rotate the guys, right? When we talked about being in the military and you only had a year break between a 15-month rotation and another year rotation. So in 3 years and some change, you spent the bulk of it deployed.
Yep.
So how are you supposed to run a family and be married and all those things? It's like, well, when we don't have enough people at home, go and sign up for the military. When we don't have enough people to rotate through, then the burden becomes just that much more on, on those guys, right? We'll take a firefighter because it's a little bit easier to unpack, but 48-hour shift, something traumatic happens on that shift. Well, they've got 3 days off to recover, like you were talking about. And now they're right back on shift, another traumatic event. Mm-hmm. And then just throughout the weeks and years and months, like, it builds up. That recovery period is just not enough. So how do we fix that, right? How do we fix it post-deployment?
Right. It's difficult. But I don't think there's the right answers. But I don't know. Communities have to be able to put the resources into fixing it.
Right.
Like, one of the biggest things we talk about with law enforcement and then sometimes fire is the stigma surrounding asking for help. Right? Think about a law enforcement officer who's that as that you don't work that job. Like you work that job because you get paid, but you did not choose to be a law enforcement officer because how lucrative it is.
Sure.
That is not that you go into it because you have a mind for public service and you want to protect people.
Right.
And that's who you are. Think about if you're struggling mentally as a police officer and you're struggling, but then you can't go to your superiors and say, hey, I'm struggling. Because what's the first thing they do? They take their weapon from you. They put you at a desk job and they take away your one solo purpose of why you chose that job.
Right.
And so they spiral you even further down into this mental health crisis.
Right.
Because they've taken the one thing away from you that you were holding on to. And that's why we have a problem in so many of our first responder fields. Because they're doing it because they want to.
Yeah.
There's other jobs that would pay them more money. Let's be real. They're doing it because they want to serve their community and they have hearts of that servant's heart.
Yeah.
And so we got to get that stigma away. Because a lot of the military, the law enforcement families that we interview, they'll tell you that's why they don't talk about it, because they fear the repercussions.
Yeah,
their chain of command is going to pull them from the beat, or they're gonna, and then but we even touched on EMS,
right?
EMS personnel are 37% of all EMS personnel have contemplated suicide. 37% have contemplated it.
Is that high?
That's high. Yeah, just for the EMS field, that's pretty high.
And I ask from a point of I almost feel like most men have thought about it in a sense that maybe they haven't made plans, but in a state of I just want to be out of this situation, right? I'm angry. I'm whatever's happening, where it's like you've considered it, but you haven't made a plan to do it, right? I guess there's levels of it.
There's.
And so when I think of the first one, right, like I think most of us have been in that situation, or I like to think that seemingly most of the people that I talk to have considered it. And at least that's in that tense of things were just really bad at that moment. In that moment, I thought about it.
Right. I think it's 37% seems to be a low number if you just look at the number itself. But I think you have to look at how many individuals are in that field. And I don't have that answer. I don't know how many people serve in EMS.
Right.
But it's I mean, I don't know the number, but 37% of all of them is pretty Admittingly, right.
And that's another key factor in this, right? We talk about 22 a day, as far as veterans. But we know that you want to.
It's 40. So there's several studies out there. The one thing we do know for sure is that is underreported. Right. 22 a day is not the number. What they're quantifying now is anywhere from 44 to 60. We use 44 veterans a day because I can quantify it in studies.
Right.
I haven't seen many studies with 60.
So with the 22 a day, they left a note. There was witnesses.
They left a suicide note. It was more direct lethal means, via firearm, via hanging, via poison.
Okay.
Like more direct mortal wounds.
Right.
The other ones, the other 20 a day that they don't count, is overdose. Self-inflicted overdose, mortal injury through overdose.
Right.
I said, we lose another 20 a day to overdose that they don't count as self-inflicted.
What about vehicle accidents?
Right,
Driving
and
your car into a bridge. Something along
All
those
the
lines.
mortal injuries that they don't talk about.
Right.
You know? And so it could be higher than 44. Absolutely. But they don't count those. Right? So that's why we use the statistic 44 a day. Because that's a more realistic expectation. And yes, like any number that is probably underreported. So, but we know it's not 22. That's the point.
Right.
We know it's not as low as 22. I think the baseline should be 44, and more studies are going to come out. That's the thing with statistics is even when they do run the statistics, they're always changing. But the pattern we're seeing in suicide, it's not going down.
And that's kind of that next caveat, right? Is the awareness, right? So the education piece, the awareness piece, and what was the third one?
Prevention. So awareness, prevention, and education.
So we the awareness has been out there for over 10 years now.
Absolutely.
I remember coming back from Germany and people are starting 22 this, 22 that, and that was the number that was put out there. So I think everyone's heard 22. The unfortunate truth behind that is in the 10 years that we've been bringing awareness, our numbers have actually gone up. They've doubled or tripled.
Yeah.
So the awareness piece is it that enough? That alone is not working.
No, it's not. And that's why you have to have prevention and education because they also, just in veteran population alone, there's several key figures we need to talk about. 18.5%. And this is backed up by doctoral studies, dissertations. 18.5% of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan will develop post-traumatic stress. Of that 18.5%, once they develop post-traumatic stress through combat or service, they become 9.8 times more likely to die by suicide because of developing post-traumatic stress. Yeah.
It's staggering, man.
Yeah, and that's just veterans. So they say that there's studies out there too that say that every suicide affects a minimum of 5 family members and 135 community members. Let's use the veteran rate alone. At a minimum, we're looking at 44 veterans a day. And then you say, okay, well then let's factor in the 5 family members of each of those 44 veterans. And then the 135 community members. So veteran suicide a day will affect 29,700 people. Yeah. 44 times 5 times 135.
Yeah. I was trying to do the beer math, but that gets a little extensive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Veteran suicide alone, 44 a day veteran suicide affects 29,700 people. And we haven't done the numbers for firefighters. We haven't done the numbers for law enforcement. That's where our education comes in. Typically, the reaction we get is you can hear a pin drop in the room. People didn't know these statistics.
Yeah.
They're shocked that, the veterans and our first responders have such a high rate. But then when you start looking at it, you see why the rates are so high. Like there's so many things that we're not doing right. Like, and for me, I think we're in the right direction with community support.
Yeah.
Like the purpose of this podcast, of you bringing people on here and highlighting what works, what didn't work, what helped them get through a dark time. I think that's huge for people listening. But that's what we use as well. So we use our ceremonies, we use our educational travel to reach those people who are still listening.
Right.
Because what I close out every ceremony with is I will ask all the veterans, all the first responders, and anyone with a veteran family member to stand up. And then what I'll tell them is please listen. And I'll typically try to get right in front of people so they hear what I'm saying. And I'll raise my voice and I'll amplify it. Say, please understand that if you are contemplating suicide, please know that the demons do not die with you. They transfer to your loved ones, who then have to deal with those scars and the grief that you left behind. It doesn't go away. When you choose to take yourself out of this world, you are transferring all those demons to your loved ones, because they have to deal with your scars now, because you're gone.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with your scars, your demons, and then on top of all the traumatic events that they're going through with the loss, financial instabilities, all the things that the comfort level they had with you is no longer there. So now they have all these questions on how they're going to survive and keep living, especially if they have children.
Yeah, that's right. We we were talking earlier, when these guys and gals find themselves in that dark space and they feel like they're responsible, they're the reason that their husband or wife or son or daughter are walking on eggshells because of their mental health, right? And it starts to dawn on them that everyone is acting the way that they are because of me. Therefore, I'm the problem. I'm a problem solver. You're a problem solver, right? So just remove the problem. And I think a lot of our brothers and sisters, that's where they find themselves. Mm-hmm. And we hear them referred to as cowards, things of that nature. And that really bothers me.
That does not sit well with me.
Let's talk on that for a minute.
Yeah, the term coward or suicide as a selfish act is absolutely incorrect. Nothing about this is anywhere relevant.
I agree.
From a person who has been within 20, 30 seconds of ending my life, that was not a selfish act. It's called perceived burdensomeness, is what it's called. You feel like you are a burden to everyone around you.
Yeah.
And so that is why you feel you need to exit or remove yourself, the problem, from the scenario.
Okay.
And that's the furthest from the truth. Because that problem that you're dealing with, whatever it may be, at some point you will look back at that, if you give yourself a chance, is temporary.
That's right.
Right? But that term, you're selfish. I dare anyone to say that in front of me, or anyone that's ever served.
Yeah.
Because my response to that is, have you been in that position? Have you been in such a position of isolation and despair? Have you went and put yourself and raised your hand and served in any capacity to expose yourself to these traumatic events?
That's right. To
your country, to your community, whatever it may be. And if your answer is no, if you have not done any one of those, you are the last person that should be talking about suicide as selfish.
That's right.
The act of suicide in our brains, when we make this decision to do it, is a selfless act.
Yeah.
We think we're the problem.
We're removing the problem.
We have a case of perceived burdensomeness where we feel we are a burden to everybody, and we feel we're doing them a favor. But I lead into this by saying, if anyone's listening to that, that is 100% false.
That's right.
You need to stay.
You do.
Stay one more day. Because whatever you're going through, I'm not promising you it's going to be 100% better the next day. But you are going to learn to deal with some stuff. In adversity, you teach yourself how to get through things. The brain is a wonderful thing.
That's right.
And you have to give yourself the chance to learn how to do that. And so please don't, if you're in that spot, deal with it. But don't think that you're a burden to everyone else. Because, in fact, it's the opposite. When you choose to do this action, you become a burden.
That's right.
And let's be honest, that's what we're here for. And I know people won't like me for saying that, but I don't care.
Yeah.
When you make the choice to end your life, you have just created a burden for your family.
That's right.
They are the ones that have to pick the pieces up. They're the ones that have to go through the death certificate process. Can you imagine a widow having to go see the coroner 2 or 3 times to update the death certificate verbiage just so it can be service connected? Them having to go see the coroner that processed their loved one's remains 3 times, 4 times to get the death certificate to say the right verbiage so it can be service connected. The trauma that they don't talk about off the screen.
Yeah. No.
Right? What was that family going through when that person did it?
Right.
Because now all this is amplified. And this is why Heroes in the Sky advocates for our families.
Let's talk about Green Star families for a minute, because most people have heard about Gold Star families, and if you haven't, what a Gold Star family is when you lose a service member during war, right? If they're deployed in a time of war and their lives are taken, not through their own means, but they've been lost, their family. Immediate family and their parents, they are now considered Gold Star family members. Green Star families or Green Star widows is a newer term that I've recently been introduced to, and I think it's a great thing what they're doing, and it's really to try to cut out a lot of this red tape that you're talking about with like the coroners and things, because, well, I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, so the biggest difference between Green Star and Gold Star, Green Star is actively focusing on those families that have lost loved ones to suicide, right? It is rededicating the resources that should be there for these families where they don't have to fight for the service connection. Because a Gold Star, what you're talking about, a Gold Star family automatically gets the service connection. So what follows with that? Benefits.
Sure.
Everything that the resources that family should get to process the death of a loved one. Green Star families is huge because it's trying to implement those policies when we lose them directly to suicide, where we don't have the red tape. Where you don't have to fight so hard to show a service connection, where you don't have to fight, where there's things in place that family can get. If there's any, DIC involved, they can get that without like a hassle, or they don't have to show, they don't have to go through many loops with the death certificate of, oh, it doesn't say this, it doesn't say this.
Right.
Like that legislation that Green Star is trying to produce and the awareness that they're trying to bring to the suicide sector is huge. And it gives the families, because a lot of these families, they don't want to have to fight for that service connection.
Well, they shouldn't have to.
They shouldn't. They just lost a warrior.
Right.
They just lost a spouse. They just lost, a huge part of their life.
Right.
And so now we're making them, prior there were a lot of hoops to jump through. And these stories are documented through a lot of our works with widows.
Right.
We, Heroes in the Sky, works directly with widows and parents. And I talk to a lot of families that have lost loved ones to suicide. And yeah, Green Star is huge, because that's that exclusive designation where they are recognized as the suicide is recognized. You don't have to fight for the service connection. And they hopefully they pass the legislation where they streamline the benefits to the families, where they're not waiting, however long to get the benefits that they need. And it's the recognition, right? To me, it's the recognition too.
Yeah, I think, as you look at the second and third order effects, that happen when a loved one is lost to whether it's war, whether it's the war at home, what's what you brought home with you. Those second, third order effects, right? The spouses, right? The children, the family members. We don't give them enough recognition.
Oh, no.
From the beginning, right? From you talked about all these deployments that you went on and being gone all the time,
right?
And it's like, okay, well, who's running things back home, right? Because you got kids,
yeah.
You came back, got divorced, and we talked about that a little bit too. Yep. And a lot of us face that, after a multitude of deployments. But one thing that we kind of spoke on a little bit is you guys are really into taking care of the families, trying to get them their medical benefits, ensuring that they've got, because again, a lot of the family members, especially when it's a son or daughter who's not married, so their mother and father, they didn't do anything with the military, so they don't know how to navigate all these systems. And so that's where you guys find yourselves in that space, trying to kind of liaison, if you will.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what you guys are doing with the families.
So it's more with the families is giving them that identity and purpose. Like the first stage to the families is giving them a voice, giving them a platform to talk about it. Whatever they want to talk about. We don't, if they want to go into raw emotions that make uncomfortable conversations, good for you. That's what we want. Because here's what the families do. The families create awareness and resilience by telling their stories.
That's right.
They do. And through their awareness and their resilience, the product of that is they turn their grief into prevention.
That's right.
Because they share their stories. They reach other people. Think about the reason we called our series Deterrence Through Truth. It's called that for a reason. Okay, we're giving the family's identity and a purpose, but we want deterrence through truth. We want that family to tell the story so raw, so emotional, that when people hear it, they're uncomfortable. But if I'm a veteran or first responder or family member in that predicament, and I'm having suicidal thoughts, I might think twice about doing it if I directly hear what another widow's saying what it did.
Right. I don't ever want to put my son or daughter or wife through.
And so deterrence.
Yeah.
So if that's the only reason you stay, Heroes in the Sky is one.
You're still here.
You're still
we
here.
Don't care, right?
You're still here. We don't care. You know that, and that's our families are the centerpiece to that, because the families have to have the courage to open up. Like they have to acknowledge the trauma.
That's right.
They have to acknowledge the tragedy, and they have to open up and talk about it. So our platforms give them confidence. It gives them an identity. Lowers their suicide rates because we're involving them more.
Right.
It shows it shows other families that there is resilience, and that there is resilience, and there is a resolve in tragedy.
And a community.
In the community, right? Yeah. And that's one piece. But the other piece we do for families is exactly that. If a family loses a warrior and they don't know how to get his DD-214, we try to help them request the DD-214. My brother, we just lost him, D'Angelo. I personally helped his mother request a copy of his DD-214 because she didn't know where to start. But we do that for, especially when it's crisis stuff, like if they've already lost the warrior, or anything that family may need. It could be just constant uplifting.
Right.
Like one of the things that we do as well is we call it the angelversary date. We get the date that they lost their warrior.
Okay. And
I set a calendar on my Outlook calendar, and every year on that angelversary date, Heroes in the Sky makes an uplifting post putting pictures of the warriors up, asking the community to uplift that family because they're in their time of tragic loss. And we do that every year.
Wow.
So we completely, our focus shifted from when we started Heroes in the Sky It was awareness based. It was 100% awareness based because we didn't know the impact we were having on the families until we learned it. And then we learned how impactful what we're doing for the families. Like you talk to these families and you ask them what these vests mean.
Yeah.
You know, and you ask them what it means to be given a platform to come tell their story. You see a different side of those families.
Sure.
Because they feel like they're wanted again. Because think about that family lost. If it's a spouse, they lost an intimate partner. They lost they lost probably their financial source because they were the breadwinner. They lost a father to their children if there's children involved, and they lost all these things.
Their best friend,
and then they still have to deal, especially when it's a suicide. The routine things that come with a death.
Yeah.
Death certificate, autopsy report, benefits, all that, VA filings, right? But then now, because it's a suicide, they have to deal with the scars and the demons that's transferred to them for their loved one.
Yeah, there's probably moral injury that comes along with that.
And that moral injury, the biggest thing is why.
Yeah.
You have now, as choosing to do this, you imprint that question of why on your family.
Yeah.
And they never have an answer for it. You will never answer that question. No matter what I do for that family, they are always going to wonder why. And there's just so many things what they don't talk about. One of the cool things, one of the widows we talk about, who's very open about her struggle, and we'll talk. There's going to be some opportunities we'll talk about with her soon. But with future projects. But she goes into how many times she had to go back for the death certificate, how many times that back to the funeral home, how long she waited for benefits, all these things that should have been a streamlined process for her so she could grieve.
Should have been the last thing on her mind.
She should be able to grieve that loss and learn, and because at that immediate time of the tragedy, they don't know what happened. And most of us wouldn't. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even act like I understand what they know.
Yeah.
Like I lost a brother, and it grieves. But I don't know what it's like to lose a spouse and what they have to go through. And then you're going to throw all this, everything compounding on top of them. I don't know. We got to streamline the process for these, and
we can do better.
Right. We can do better. And a lot of this Heroes in the Sky doesn't control, but what we don't control, we can help navigate.
Right.
Right. If it's a process that we don't do, but hey, I can help you get the DD214, or this is how you get that, or this is where you might look for it. Right. Look for an I Love Me book, because most families don't know about the I Love Me book. Right. I have one. You probably have one. Right. We all have one. But in the time of a loss, a family member might not know to look for that.
Right.
And so that's what we kind of try to do, is help that family in any way we can. And we would love to be at the point where we could financially help the families. That would be an awesome, goal. But with Heroes in the Sky, we're at a challenge. And I guess I am going to call some people out, because we have been denied grants and support from our community because our money didn't go directly to the veterans.
Okay.
Yeah. I have been told by community people in my community that, because we ask for support, fundraisers, stuff like that, because that's what funds our missions.
Right.
Oh, sorry, we can't support you directly with money because your money doesn't go directly to the veterans.
Because of their families.
It goes to their families. But that's not what they want. They want the title of I support veteran charities. It's only a title for them. That's the problem. So we don't have the funding to do a lot of the things the widows need. We would love to. I'd love to be sitting on a bankroll.
Yeah.
Where I had funding to provide little stuff for widows. Let's talk about grocery cards. So they, in that time of loss, how are they going to feed their kids?
Right.
Like give them a grocery card where they can call and food can be delivered to them.
Right, because your pay gets turned off.
Yeah, they're not getting the pay.
Yeah.
Right, and they're fighting for the benefits, so it could be months to 6 months to 8 months before they see any kind of DIC payment. Right, and that's if there's even cash benefits available.
Right.
And so what the little things is what Heroes in the Sky would like to do. And that's our charge is this upcoming year is to expand our financial growth to where we can give food cards where families in the time of a loss, a widow can call in a meal to be delivered or groceries to be delivered so they don't have to go out and get it so they can grieve.
Right.
Or the little stuff like, contacting, getting a chaplain involved.
Right.
Because some of the most powerful stories you'll ever hear from widows is chaplains.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that got me the most was a widow that we work with, and her husband was a police officer that lost his internal war. And she said one of the most impactful things that they did for her was a couple chaplains came to her house and sat in the room and watched the kids while she took a bath, while she processed things, while she could just grieve and not be a mom.
Bro, this is not the first time I've talked about chaplains on this show. Like, I love the guys. The guys and gals. Like, I need to get one on the show because they're amazing people.
They are. A chaplain saved my life in Iraq. They've saved. When you hear the widows talk, the ones that did get chaplains involved,
yeah,
they've been monumental in these widows' recoveries. And even if it's just right after the fact, that's an hour for that widow that's just lost her husband to shower and clean herself up, or to go sit in a quiet room and not have to watch kids, where she can just focus on grieving.
Yeah.
The little basic fundamental stuff that we all take for granted.
Yeah, we do.
But when you lose someone to suicide or you have kids in those immediate days as a mom, what chances do they get to experience that? What chances do they get to clean themselves up a little bit and focus and think when you got kids running around? Or you have to think about dinner, or how is dinner getting here? Or what about working? They still have to work.
Yeah, they still have bills, and now
there's still bills, and they've lost their primary caregiver.
Yeah.
And it's the little things I wish that I know that Heroes in the Sky's gotten to where we are because we just believed.
Right.
And we're going to get there. We'll get there to where we have the funding to do such, and just take care of people like that and our families. But you have to make this about the families.
And I think that's the right place to be focused, especially at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've already suffered so much, man.
Yep.
Obviously, they probably suffered a ton leading up to that moment too. It's pretty rare that a loved one will say, I didn't see it coming. Like, things were so great at home and all of a sudden, right? So, no, I agree. I think a lot of support needs to go to the families.
And the ones that are willing to talk about it. What about that time where the ones that will come out and openly say, yeah, there were problems at home. We saw these signs. Things weren't the greatest when this happened.
Yeah.
Like, we're not painting the picture that it was all roses.
Right.
Like, there was some kind of traction there. There was some kind of grief there.
There were flags.
There were flags. There were signs. There were emotionally numb there was events that made these families emotionally numb.
Right.
And we, Heroes in the Sky, is about to start our own podcast. And so I chose, and I'm still not telling people who the co-host is, because this is like a thing. I want her to come out and say it.
Okay.
But we've chosen a co-host that lost her husband to law enforcement suicide. Like, he was a law enforcement officer, but her story, her knowledge, the way she carries herself, the people that she can touch, I just felt like she was the co-host.
Right.
Like, it had to be her. And she's already been asking. right? Hey, when can we tell everyone? Because she's excited too.
Well, now you got me excited.
Yeah, and so it's coming in January. We're launching our own. We already have our YouTube channel, Deterrence Through Truth.
Okay.
But now we're going to launch our own.
Deterrence Through Truth.
Deterrence Through Truth.
Okay.
That's the YouTube channel.
And now, how long have you been running Deterrence Through Truth? Because I don't think we talked about it.
We started this year.
Okay.
We've got 4 or 5 episodes up, and then we got 2 more we need to release.
Okay, so President, Heroes in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Host?
Yeah. Host of Deterrence Through Truth.
Deterrence Through Truth.
Yeah.
Soon to be co-host of... Do you have a name?
We haven't come out with a name yet.
Okay.
We're still in the stages with the board of directors where we need their final approval. So we got to pitch it to the board of directors with the name.
Okay.
So we're still do we have a name that we want? Yes, but it's not official.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yes, soon to be co-host of a podcast.
So you're not officially doing the launch on my show here.
No,
telling me everything. All right.
Unfortunately, I got to get the board of directors.
We got to keep them wanting more anyway,
right?
James.
Yeah, we got to.
So you got to stay tuned for that.
Absolutely, stay tuned because that is coming shortly, and we want to make sure we do it the right way. The board of directors just wants to make sure that everything's flowing right.
Sure. And
that they're protecting their president because they're just looking after me.
Right
that's all it is. But no, we're very excited. That I envision this podcast to be one of the most uncomfortable ones you've ever listened to, because we want this podcast to touch 2 populations. One, the population that's already dealing with the grief.
Right.
They've already lost the warrior. They're trying to recoup their life. And they're trying to just learn how to live.
What now?
What now, right? Yeah. The whys, okay? The second population is those struggling in silence.
Okay.
The population that may be the but the parent who may have a suicidal child. And they're dealing with it. They don't know what to look for. They're lost, right? The spouse that's got a suicidal loved one, right? A partner. What are you looking for?
Right.
What are you looking for in that population?
Okay. What are those flags?
What are those flags, right? And then the other ones too is the children, the mothers, right? Mothers, children, siblings, family. We don't exclude any family. The point is we want that population to be those struggling in silence that may have a loved one facing this problem, this epidemic. I call it a plague at this point.
Oh.
Let's be honest.
That's probably the more proper term at this point, right?
Epidemic is they're somewhat controlled.
Yeah.
We have not got a control on suicide.
Yeah.
So I call it a plague.
Yeah, if anything, it seems like it's slipping further out of our control, right?
Absolutely.
The more we start to look at it, you've identified several things. I don't hear, and I don't think people at home, unless it's directly affected you, I don't hear about the firefighters. I don't hear about the law enforcement officers, but we hear about veteran suicide, right? So we've done a good job, evidently, about, getting that out. So maybe through some works, we can, start getting those numbers and start having an effect on them. More importantly, right? Yeah,
we need patterns of reduction in these suicide rates.
Yeah,
because we're not seeing those. In any of the studies we look at, whether you go by 22 or 44, numbers are growing.
They are.
Numbers are elevated. They're not going down, and so the area of prevention, we are not doing so well. We're not preventing it. We got to figure that. We still got to keep fighting. I think it's important too that we have conversations like this, because not my organization alone, Heroes in the Sky, is not going to make. We can make a difference, but solo we cannot do anything.
Right.
It takes a community.
That's absolutely right.
It takes everyone listening to this. It takes everyone, on Team Trek podcast, Heroes in the Sky, everyone in your community, everyone in my community. We all have to come together and unite.
That's right.
If we don't, our numbers are continue to rise.
Yeah, we're not going to get through this
Right.
alone.
No. And, it's great we have awareness, but we have been aware of this problem for a very long time. What are we doing now? And I think that's where Heroes in the Sky wants to kind of separate ourselves. Because who focuses on the families as much? We wanted to do that, right? The families are where you start your prevention. Where else do you start? Because we've already lost the warrior in most of these cases. We've lost the warrior to their internal war. The prevention's in the families.
That's right.
And then the loved ones listening. Those loved ones suffering in silence because they have somebody suicidal in their home and they don't know what to do. Or they don't know how to notice signs of post-traumatic stress. Or what? I think it's all education that we need to keep pushing.
Yeah, education. And again, the stigmas, right? You talk about the fears of the risk of what could be lost, right? If I'm witnessing my significant other struggle and they have a job where they have to carry a firearm, right? And I report this, they're going to potentially lose that job and I'm going to hurt them, right? So we have to come up with better solutions to be able to help dudes where it doesn't ruin them, it doesn't ruin their career.
Yep.
And I think we've done a better job in the military. I can't speak to law enforcement. I can't speak to fire, but I can say in the military, it has gotten better over the years. If you need to take a knee, you can come back into the fight. But I know during your time, it was a lot different, and I'm happy to see that it's getting better.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's hearing you talk about it because I got out in 2013.
Yeah,
so. That's why a lot of the new stuff that's happening, I'm not very up to date on because it's just not during my time in the service. Some of this stuff just wasn't there.
Yeah. It's somewhat inspiring. It's taken a long time and right. I don't want to post any blame on it, but it's, Vietnam era, the prior wars, we didn't have these platforms for guys to really be able to speak out about what they were going through. They got home. They weren't well received when they got home, after those wars. So a lot of guys didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about what they were dealing with.
Right.
And so we didn't know what to expect after 20 years of war. I'm sure people had ideas, but nevertheless, they had to be done. These things had to happen. We had to do what we had to do, but now it's fixing it, right? We can't change the past, but we can absolutely change how we do things moving forward. And we take this data that we've learned over the years, these AARs, if you will, and the lessons learned, and we start applying them and really start making changes. And we should see these numbers come down, but as we discussed, once we're out of the military, it's not their responsibility anymore. No. It becomes our responsibility. And most of us retired service members aren't sitting on a huge mountain of money to be able to do these things that we know need to be done. Right. So you're right. We need the support of the communities out there. I don't want to say this like I'm putting us up on a pedestal, but I mean, we were gone for a long time. We didn't really have the opportunities sitting back here to establish our franchises, so to speak, right? We did a job that we knew was going to be up to 20 years and we were going to get a pension or disability. But it was never going to be anything significant. Kind of like you were talking about the law enforcement, you don't join because you're going to get rich out of it.
Nope.
But we were gone all of that time, and now we're trying to catch up. We're trying to make up for that lost time, if you will. And so we're in a deficit. So we need you guys and gals at home to help us out and finance some of these things. And we can fix these guys and gals, and we can basically kind of reinstate them into the world. You know what I mean? Repurpose them.
I tell people I'm all about showing, if you're going to donate money to a college, you should see where it goes.
Absolutely.
And I'm huge on that. My area of expertise is finance, and nonprofit finance is what I do. So we're 100% transparent where our money goes. But I can show you where your money goes as well, because I can introduce you to widows and family members that have they still have grief and trauma from a loss of a loved one, but they will tell you what programs like ours has meant for them and the impact that it's made in their life. And everything's not all golden, but they'll say, interacting with Heroes in the Sky and other organizations like ours, what it does.
Right.
What it does for their well-being and their purpose and their reason to be here. That's what I tell people. Let me introduce you to some families that have dealt with the ultimate loss, but they're still here, and our program helped them. I will validate where your money goes right there. Because if you meet one of these widows and these families and you don't see the impact that it's made, something's wrong.
Right.
Damn. Because here's the greatest part about Heroes in the Sky. We know these families they've lost everything in a partner, in a child, in a sibling. We know that. But we have convinced them to trust Heroes in the Sky enough, not only to honor their warrior, but for them to open up to us and tell their story for others to hear.
That's huge.
Right?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Huge.
We're taking a family that's lost everything, that's got all this grief, that's got all this trauma, all this sadness. And we've convinced them that our program is going to look after them and be there for them. And they nominated their warrior. And then they openly talked to us about what that warrior meant to them and where they are now. If that doesn't show you where the money's going to an impactful place,
right,
you need to start looking somewhere else, because you're blind.
Wow.
That's huge. That's where the rubber meets the road.
That's right.
We're making an impact, one family member, one widow, one parent, one sibling at a time. And we're giving them confidence in themselves to try to grow learn from what they've been through and know that they're not alone. But you know how much courage it takes to talk about some of this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
You try losing. I just lost a brother of mine, and I don't even like talking about it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that being my spouse, that being my child. And these families are openly talking about these struggles to us.
And it's huge that they're doing it. And, it's the thing is, and I'm sure they realize it, and that's why they're doing it, but it's really changing lives out there when people that are struggling and they get to hear these stories, and they see themselves in these stories, and then better yet, they see that person that was going through this thing has healed through this, right? And what resources were used. So, prior to closing out, like we are going to put links to obviously Heroes in the Sky, and any of these assets that really helped. We'll put that in the description down below. But man, it's so important that we talk about these things. Somehow, some way, we got in this habit of trying to keep everything contained, right? Mm-hmm. The trauma itself. Okay, if I'm gonna heal from this, it's got to be a secret. I'm gonna do it over here. I'm not gonna let anybody know what I'm going through. And then they actually heal. They have their breakthroughs, and they never talk about it. And it's like, man, if you like, those are the things we need to hear, man, because I need that, right? And yeah, so I appreciate you coming out, man. Before we close out, though, any parting words, any parting knowledge that you just got to lay on some people?
What we end everything with, whether you're a veteran, family member, first responder, and you're in a dark place and you're contemplating suicide, take it from somebody that's been there. Take it from somebody that's been 25 seconds from taking my life. You are not a burden. you will become a burden if you choose to do this. The ones you love the most, the ones you are trying to protect, your parents, your spouse, your children, whoever it may be that loves you, you have someone that loves you. You will transfer these scars and these demons to them if you choose to do this. You put more trauma and pressure on them in your absence. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Stay one more day. Stay, because if tomorrow's going to be better, and if tomorrow's not better, then the next day will be better. But either way, every day you confidently learn that you are able to do this, and that your family needs you.
That's right.
And take it from our families that we help. Those families are struggling. Those families lost a loved one that are struggling because their loved one took their life. And just, if you don't believe me, ask them what it's like. Watch one of our videos.
Yeah.
Watch what happens, what their life looks like because their loved one decided to take their life. Yeah, that's my last message. Just please, just stay. Like, tell somebody you're in a dark place.
Yeah.
Like, someone will sit with you.
Yeah. Reach out. Don't sit there alone.
Don't suffer alone.
Yeah.
Someone will sit with you. You're not a burden. You belong here just as well.
That's right.
You belong here just as much as I do. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. Your parents need you. Somebody in your family, someone that your battle buddies, someone needs you. And by choosing to complete the act of suicide, you're transferring all those burdens. The one thing that you feel like you're a burden now, but that's not the truth.
That's right.
You will become a burden if you choose to do this. That's what I think that's the best way to say it.
All right. No, I agree 100%. All right, James. Well, hey man, thank you so much for stopping by on your tour. If you would come back by anytime, keep us updated with what you got going on.
Yeah.
It was an absolute pleasure, man. And
Absolutely.
You're crushing it, brother. So thank you so much.